Hello, everyone. Tell me if you can hear me and if you can see me right now. Welcome everybody to another masterclass. My name is Shannon. I write under the pen name of S.C. Huston, the author of the Clash of Goddesses series and A Curse of Scales and Feathers. And today I am going to be doing a class about Kickstarter basics. I will be getting into that in just a moment. I do want to give a couple minutes for anybody who is coming in a bit later, and for anybody that gets caught by an ad or whatever that they may catch on the way in. And let me know where you are watching from. I am in the Panhandle of Florida, so hopefully y'all can hear me okay. And hello to those who are already here. Yes, I guess I put the wrong link into the I didn't put an actual sign up to my newsletter link into the description box or in the chat. So if those of you who had already gotten it, you've gotten it for free without, it's okay. You don't have to be on my newsletter list for it. But I will have it. I will fix that. I did drop a link for my newsletter. It is just a direct sign up link. So it's not going to give you that document that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later. But if you email me and say, hey, I would really like to get it, I will get you the document for sure. And then I will fix that link in the description box. It will have the correct link at a later date. So it'll be after this is over. And welcome to Felicia and Rachel and writer Cleve Bourbon. It's so nice to see all of you guys. And thank you for letting me know about the link. Writer Cleve Bourbon. Cleve, I don't know what was going through my head when I set up that link. I don't know what I was thinking. But yes, there. Alrighty. Well, I think this will be enough time, hopefully, for people to have come in. We're a couple minutes into the stream, so let's go ahead and get started. So Kickstarter basics. Get this set up. I have like my notes off to the side here so I can make sure I am looking at and not missing anything that I want to say. All right, so who is this class for? It is for unpublished and published authors who don't really know what Kickstarter is and what it can do to help them, or those who are curious about trying Kickstarter or want to find a different model to get paid for their writing, who may already have direct sales or want to try direct sales, or those who want to tap into a different type of market and audience. And I'm going to discuss these as we go through. Writer Cleve says, I'm in the Panhandle of Texas. So yeah, I'm in the Panhandle of Florida. Alrighty. So what you'll learn today, what Kickstarter is and what it can do for you, why Kickstarter may work as part of your publishing plan. And I do think this can really work as a model to incorporate and not replace a publishing plan that you already have going on. What you can do on Kickstarter, the basics of a Kickstarter campaign, preparing for your campaign, and then tips and resources. And I actually do have a guest appearance by Dana Claire later, who is a marketing and sales pro and public speaker. So it's going to be great that she was able to come on, and she will come on toward the end of the lecture material that I'm giving here. I say lecture because I'm thinking teacher, because I used to teach. And I did time myself on this. It takes me about 2 hours to get through the material, not including the time for Q&A. And there will be a 10-minute break at the halfway point. And then Dana will come in near the end and we will end with her. Hello, Morgan. Welcome. All right. So who I am, who am I? You may know me already, but if you don't, I spent several different years in different careers. I started off in the U.S. Army. I was a soldier in the Army. I did deploy one deployment overseas. And then I left the military to go to school full time. I had already met my husband and married him. He was in the military, met him while I was in the military. And we were told we were staying localized where I was graduating from the College of William & Mary with my bachelor's, which I got in psychology. I might have said that already. And so I started applying to PhD programs and master's programs in my area. And then we suddenly got orders to Hawaii, and I had to figure out what else I was going to do with my life. In the meantime, I went to work for the Marine Corps as a civilian, doing the same job I did in the military, in the Army, which was admin. I'm really good. I'm good at details. I'm really, really detail oriented. So I was really, really good at that job. All right. Then I did get my MFA in creative writing from Spalding University, which is located in Kentucky. So I did some remote and long what they call it, low residency program is what that was, where I had to attend every semester, but just at the beginning of the semester. And then I was able to go back home to Hawaii and complete the rest of my coursework through correspondence with my mentor. After that, after I graduated, I taught college English and literature for many years. And I also ran my own business as a writing coach where I help thousands of writers all over the world. And I do have a course where I have close to 2,000 students in my course from that time period. And I still have students who are joining my course, although I don't talk about it because the lecture material is really old. But I did find that I really loved teaching, even though I knew I wanted to be a writer. And so being here on YouTube and doing a class like this, it speaks to my soul because I really do like teaching and sharing what I learn. So on the writer side, I do write and self-publish fantasy romance and YA fantasy. I do have a full trilogy out in YA fantasy along with a box set that is published. And my Kickstarter was done on A Curse of Scales and Feathers. The novella that goes along with the Kickstarter is The Sunstone and the Hybrid Prince. Came in at 27,000 words. Just finished that this past week. And that will also go up on retailer platforms once I move into moving off of Kickstarter and into the rest of my publishing plan. And hello to those who came in, Mr. Volandis and RC Scott. So nice to see you guys. All right. And who else? What else do I do? I co-host and produce Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks podcast with Morgan Lee, who is in the chat, and Ben Pick from Running to Write. I'm also a founder and a team member of the authortube Writing Conference, and I love sharing my experiences here on YouTube. Like I said, I think this just really speaks to my soul of sharing the information that I learn. I really enjoy doing that. I love learning and I love sharing my information. So my Kickstarter campaign. So throughout all this course, I'm going to share my tips, my insights from running my own Kickstarter, but I'm not a guru. I've only done one Kickstarter campaign. It was successful, and we'll look at some figures and you'll see what the rates are compared to like publishing on Amazon. I've broken down some figures. I did learn a whole lot. Before I ran my Kickstarter campaign, I knew pretty much a year out from the day that I ran my Kickstarter campaign that I was going to be doing a Kickstarter campaign. That's when I started consuming information about Kickstarter. I learned from a lot of great people, podcasts, YouTube. I did lots of courses. I went to conferences and attended lectures during the conferences about Kickstarter. I did pay for one very expensive course. And then, of course, some of this also was done through networking. And actually some of my networking, that's how I met Dana Claire, who is going to be coming on a little bit later. And she also did a Kickstarter campaign. So all I aim to do with today's presentation is to share my knowledge. I'm not trying to pass myself off as the person who knows it all, because I don't. I'm not an expert. I'm not positioning myself as an expert. I'm only going to share the information I've learned, what I've learned from my own campaign, and what I've learned from others in listening to them and seeing what they're doing in their experiences. So this was my campaign, if you are not aware of it. Hello, Jennifer. Nice to see you. It did come in. It completed at $3,800 on the end of July. So July 31st is when it did. It does show the last updated when I sent stuff out to my backers on the 20th of this month. And I do have that button there. So if you are interested at all in getting any part of this campaign, almost all of it, there's one part that was exclusive to Kickstarter, but almost all of it is on Indiegogo. You see the button there, says Missed Out, go here. The link is down in the chat below or in the description box below. You can click on that and you can go there. And what I would say is the ebook is ready for the main novel, A Curse of Scales and Feathers, and the novella is done. And I had like the highest praise today for the novella. My husband is not a reader. And I was just talking about my novella and how I was really proud of it. And he's kind of the one to be like, to put you in your place if he thinks you're being a fool of yourself. I was like, no, it's good. I like it. It's really good. It's much, much better than anything I've written. And so he sat down and he read the whole thing. He didn't stop until he finished reading it. And he texted me right before I went live and said, I finished it and this was really good. And he's not a reader. And when he does read, he reads horror. So he doesn't read fantasy, and definitely not the fantasy that I wrote for my novella. It does have it's fantasy romance, and it has some spicy scenes in it. But yeah, so there you go. Highest praise to me because my husband is not a reader. All right, so what you can do for the class, you can ask any questions that you want. You can put a Q in front of it. I would say hold your questions until I get to the Q&A periods. I will have a total of 5 places where I'm stopping, 5 Q&A periods. I'm going to stop and see if you have questions, and then one at the end of the class. So I would ask that you hold it only because I probably won't see it if it's further back in the chat. So, if you have it, write it down or type it up in something, but put a Q in front of it when we get to the Q&A periods. And I'm going to try to get to that as soon as I get to that Q&A period and answer all those questions. And again, at the end, there will be another one. Be prepared for a very in-depth class. I always share a lot of information. Of course, this is going to be on my channel. You can watch it later. We will take breaks. And then also let let me know. I'm going to remind you guys. Let me know what other classes you'd like to hear, me to do that you feel that I might be qualified to give you guys. And I feel that there's probably another one I can do with Kickstarter, but we'll see if you guys want something like that. So what is Kickstarter? Well, it is a crowdfunding platform. There is more than one type of crowdfunding platform out there. You also have Indiegogo, which is also crowdfunding. Indiegogo offers an on-demand platform as well if you've already done a Kickstarter. So that's how I'm using it, is on demand, where people can go there, buy it, and get the product almost right away. I figured out I'm supposed to wait 10 days before I send it, but I didn't know that. And I've already sent stuff out to a couple of people who bought stuff on Indiegogo. But yes, it is crowdfunding. And so this is directly from their website. Kickstarter campaigns make ideas into reality. It's where creators share new visions for creative work with communities that will come together to fund them. And the idea here is that you have an idea, you put it out there for everyone to see what your idea is, and you're saying, please, can you fund me so I can make this idea come to life? This is how it's supposed to work. And Kickstarter started off mainly as a platform for gamers, those who created board games. And creating a board game takes a lot of capital. And so this is how Kickstarter had kind of come to fruition. And I did look at it. I looked at it back in 2013 when I graduated with my MFA about using it as an author, and I didn't see anybody else using it as an author. And I didn't know how that would work, honestly, because I didn't have a platform. I didn't have an audience. And some of that is important to get started with it. But the idea is that to remember, the key is that Kickstarter started as a physical product site. So your Kickstarter backers, they want a physical product. That's what they're looking for. You always want to keep that in your mind when you think about doing a Kickstarter. All right, so some of the success stories, probably the one that everybody knows the most about is Brandon Sanderson. And of course, he brought out 6 new novels, I think it was, and he is funding these through Kickstarter. It's already ended. I think it ended almost 2 years ago. He's still updating it and sending out updates. And as you can see, it was last updated August 30th of this year. So he's still sending out parts of his campaign 2 years later. And he did have, it skipped a slide. Well, I had something around here where you can see he had 185,000 backers with like almost $42 million is what he received. That's a lot of funds. That's not going to be typical. So don't compare yourself to him. He is traditionally published. So that does show you don't have to be only self-published to come here and try to get some funding for your work. Obviously, you probably can't do this if you have a traditionally published book. This would be like a book of your own that you can do that would not invalidate the contract that you have with your publisher and your agent. And then here's another one. This one is a fantasy, and it's fantasy romance. I actually backed this one. I met this person while I was doing my Kickstarter. It's a very good idea to network with other Kickstarter creators who are in your genre. And as you see, I don't know if it's going to skip over to the next slide. It did. Okay. See, 61 backers. That's all they had was 61 backers. I had 122. So you see, you don't have to have that many backers. You can have 61 backers. Brought this project to life with $1,900 to get it off the ground and going. Next is, I wanted to throw something else in there because so far those have been fantasy, which is my main genre, is fantasy. This is a horror. I also think this is really interesting. It is a glow-in-the-dark illustrated hardcover of a horror novel. And I was like, this is why you should do research in other genres, see what they're doing, because I think an illustrated, special, omnibus edition would be really cool to have for my series once I get to that point, which I'm going to do after I have the first 3 books done. So this was horror. This one only had 15 backers and raised $837. It is successful. So we are going to talk about, how much money you would like to set as your goal and what that would look like and how you can be successful. And so you can see here, you don't need a whole lot. You can fund it. Now, will that actually cover the cost of a glow in dark edition? I don't know. I don't know what those costs are, but that is something you want to consider when you're setting up your campaign. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. There's also nonfiction. This is another one I backed by Jennifer Hilt, is the Trope Thesaurus. It has all the tropes for romance. I backed this one, and I want to bring it up because she actually has the next book out, which is the tropes for science fiction and fantasy. And I just backed that one. It just released this past week, so I'm getting it as well. So I can't wait. I've already read part of this on the ebook, but I have the physical book coming as well. I don't have that yet, but yeah, very, very good. And there's there's a ton of other things you can do if you're doing nonfiction. I don't really cover a whole lot of the differences here between fiction and nonfiction, the different things that you can do. But if you're interested, you can always reach out to me and I'll let you know what I know and what I've seen is working. And this one had 315 backers and raised $14,000. I think she's almost there with her next one. I don't remember. I could be misremembering. I could be cross remembering information from another creator. But yeah, a lot of money on that one. And of course, this one's mine, and I had the 122 backers. I forgot I was going to put this at the beginning of my slides, so I really didn't need to bring this up again. And then here is one from one in our authortube community. And so mine, what I would say with my novel, mine is not a debut. I have a whole trilogy that's already published. This is my next series I'm working on. This is a debut novel. This is one that I would have said I would be leery, because having a debut novel, that's your first book that's coming out. You don't have like a tried and true audience in most cases. You could have like short stories already published. You could be already using short stories to bring people as a reader magnet to your newsletter list, so people already know you're writing, and that might be the case. I've not actually have not had a chance to talk with Kristen to find out exactly what her plan was leading up to this. She had 115 backers and raised over $5,600. So you see, you can do this if you have a debut novel, and you could do this at any point in your career, honestly. Then Dana Claire, this is the one who I'm bringing on later. She did it's a surprise dual narrators. This was actually like an audio drama. And I think she put it as an audio book, but I believe she has called it an audio drama when she's talked about it before. This was successfully funded, 78 backers with $4,000. And I remember the day that this launched, and I had just said, I think to someone, I was like, yeah, audiobooks are probably not the one that you want to do a Kickstarter on, because it is very hard. Kickstarter backers, they're looking for physical products. An audiobook is not a physical product. It is a digital product. And this can be very difficult. Now, she did get this back, but it took her all the way up to the last 24 hours to get backed. And I'm so very happy that she did. I backed this one as well, that she got this. And it is fantasy. It is fantasy with Greek mythology, and it actually has mermaids and pirates in it too, which my novella has mermaids and pirates. Well, it has a pirate in it and mermaids. So this was right up my alley already. So of course I want to support this. All right. So benefits for authors. What can a Kickstarter do for you? The funding. I think that's the part that most of us who know what Kickstarter is all about, is that funding portion. That is the biggest benefit that we see. And hello, Jordan, welcome. I don't know if there was anybody else that I missed who came in. I think I got everybody. So funding. So the idea is, of course, that you have a product and you get money for it, and then you're able to publish it on other platforms or get it out to the public through other platforms. For authors, of course, we're looking at, whether that's direct sales or that's like retailer platforms like Amazon or Kobo or Drafted Digital or Ingram. Some of those are distributors, not retailers, but I think you know what I mean. Or if you're doing like subscription programs, that when you're using those models, you're not getting the money up front. You're paying your costs up front to create your product, and then you're putting it out there hoping someone's going to buy it and that you're going to make up some of your costs. With Kickstarter, if you are successful, you're getting that funding up front to help you with those costs and to hopefully offset them, and depending on what your goals are, maybe make some money or make some money that you can use toward your next book or series or whatever it is that you're trying to do. There is another benefit in building an audience. Now, I'm going to talk about how you need an audience when you come to Kickstarter, but you can build an audience, but it's kind of a loop. It's a cyclical loop. You have to have an audience that is going to kickstart the algorithm that is on Kickstarter. You need that initial boost in order for the platform to recognize that you have a valid and good Kickstarter. And once they see that, once that kicks in, then they will start to do their own promotion of your Kickstarter. And there is an audience on Kickstarter, on the Kickstarter platform, who they prefer Kickstarter books or Kickstarter projects. They really enjoy getting that, because the idea with Kickstarter too is that you're going to be offering something that they can't get anywhere else, like from your website or from Amazon or wherever. And the next part is marketing. This is a way to market your book and get it out there. Your page that you set up. So when you go to Kickstarter and you're looking at a page, and I showed you guys like some screenshots, that was like the top of the page, that page You scroll down, you get more of a story, you see what the rewards are, and you see what that book's all about or whatever that project is. When you put that together, you want to be very mindful of what words you're using because it is indexed by search engines. You will be found through like Google and the other ones I don't use, like Bing. But yeah, it does get indexed by search engines. So you want to make sure that you're using those keywords that's going to help your book to or your project to be found. And of course, it is there on the platform. And if you get that boost at the beginning, there's marketing that happens on the platform itself. It's definitely a different way to tap into marketing, and it lives on the internet, because even now you can find my Kickstarter on the internet. If you type in A Curse of Scales and Feathers, you're going to see the Kickstarter and you're going to see the Indiegogo, because those live there on the internet. It's always going to be there if it ever gets searched in the future, even though Kickstarter you can't buy from anymore, and Indiegogo will shut down eventually when I start moving to other platforms. So yes, it is a great way to get some more marketing done. So those are the 3 big ones. So pros and cons. Should you do a Kickstarter? And I kind of like to switch it around, cons and pros, because I like to talk about the things that are negative first, and then let's move into the positive so we have something positive to end on. So it's a lot of work. Very, very, very time consuming. Guys, this takes a lot of work. I spent 6 weeks putting everything together just to get my Kickstarter off the ground and going. I really should have given it more time. There's a lot of stuff I didn't get done that I wanted to get done. And it takes time to go through everything. And now everything I'm going to cover today are all the things, the preliminary steps that you're going to want to do that will help you see whether or not a Kickstarter is going to work for you. And that takes a lot of time just by itself. And you're not being paid for your time. Now, what I will say is that if you're self-publishing a book, especially if you're self-publishing for the first time, but even if you're self-publishing, and platforms change all the time. They're always changing. They're always coming up with new rules or new things you have to do, or changing the categories on you. So things change all the time. And if you're self-publishing a book, or even if you are trying to traditionally publish, although there's probably less work with traditionally publishing, you have to do research. You have to look into what it is you need to do to be successful. Traditionally publishing, you're looking at literary agents, you're researching them, you're creating your letter, what do they call that? I can't remember it. The letter that you send to agents to get their attention on your work. If you're self-publishing, you're researching platforms, you're researching all your options, you're researching cover design and titles and keywords. And there's so much that goes into it. You're doing the same thing when it comes to the Kickstarter platform, but it's different. Yes, a query. Thank you, Rachel. I could not bring that word to mind. A query letter is what you send to agents. So when you're doing a Kickstarter, it's the same thing. You have to know what the rules are, what's going to help you be the most successful. If you are one of the authors who puts together a book really quickly and you put it on the Amazon platform and you're not getting any sales, that's probably because you didn't do your research. Same thing. You can do the same thing on Kickstarter. You can hurry up and put together a book, hurry up and put together your story and your launch plan, put it all up on Kickstarter, and you're not going to get backed. So if you want to be successful just in any other self-publishing platform, or traditionally publishing, again, I don't think that's as much time consuming. You still have to do some research, but not as much. You have to put some time and consideration into it and a ton of research. Rachel says, okay, I forgot the word vanilla yesterday. Long story. Sounds like a funny story. I want to know about it. Okay, chance of failing. Again, and so I feel that anything that is true, that is a con or even a pro with Kickstarter, it works for self-publishing in general. You have a chance of failing. You have a chance of failing on any self-publishing platform, but you do have the chance of failing on a Kickstarter. Chances are a little bit higher. And like I said, I'm going to look at some numbers here in a little bit. There's also pressure and accountability. You have people who are backing you, who are looking to get a product from you. And when your Kickstarter is successful and you're now in the fulfillment phase, you have those people who are wanting to know what's going on. And I don't know how many, I'm sure there's some people who are easily able to handle this pressure. I am not one of them. The first thing that went wrong when I knew there was going to be something late to my Kickstarter backers, I freaked. I was like, oh, no, I have to get this to them. I need to get it to them. So I felt that pressure and accountability really hard. And it's there. It's not like how it is on Amazon. This part is different if you're selling on like Amazon or if you're distributing through Ingram Spark or Draft to Digital. When you get your book out there and you put it on the platform, you're done pretty much, right? You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to market. You don't have to reach out to people. You don't have to do anything. You can just say, there it is. Go buy it, people. And there it is. Not the same on Kickstarter. Once you get it out there, now people are looking to get that product from you. Now, there's definitely pros on the other side of that because you get to create that one-on-one relationship with your readers and hopefully create your fan base, which I think that's in my pros. Getting ahead of myself. There's potential backlash, especially if I would say the one that we probably all might think of first is like backlash, like they don't like my product, is awful. I don't think that's going to happen. If you've done your story right, if you are, honest to the point and you're presenting your project what it is, then people shouldn't be surprised by what your project is. So unless you didn't edit it, and then they might be surprised by it. But I don't think you're going to do that if you're putting this much work into putting a Kickstarter campaign together. So here, the potential backlash is more along the lines of, yes, things are coming in late, and sometimes you can't control things. Ingram Spark, I just received a notice from Ingram Spark saying that for most of October, that their facility in Australia is undergoing repairs or something like that. And so shipping times are going to be delayed. And I do have a couple of backers in Australia, and they're supposed to get their books in October. So I know that once I get those in, I'm already going to have to contact them and be like, hey, it's running late. But what everybody keeps telling me, and what seems to be holding true, is that as long as you tell people what's going on, you keep them informed, keep your backers informed, they are usually pretty cool with it. They're not going to get that backlash. There's also fees to a platform. This one I can say is pretty much like Amazon and your distribution platforms. Even if you are on a subscription model, like if you're on Ream or Patreon or Ko-fi, you have to pay a subscription. You have to pay a fee to those platforms. Same thing with Kickstarter. You have to pay a fee to the platform. The difference here can be that it's kind of maybe an additional fee because, for instance, you pay a fee to Kickstarter, and you only pay the fee. You only pay the fee if you have a successful campaign. If you're not successful, you don't pay anyone any money. There's no money exchange, okay? So you pay the fee when you're successful, and that fee is 5% to Kickstarter. Now, say you're also creating you're creating your book in Ingram Spark. Like I'm creating my book in Ingram Spark. Now I have to pay fees to Ingram Spark. So if I was still using Ingram Spark and I was distributing my paperback to Amazon, I'm paying fees to Ingram Spark and I'm paying fees to Amazon. So it's kind of the same. I'm paying fees to Ingram Spark and I'm paying fees to Kickstarter in order to get that book to my Kickstarter backers. And there are differences in the fees, of course, but there are fees to platform. That can be a con, but it does come part of the business of self-publishing. If you are traditionally publishing, this is something you may not experience or have not experienced before, depending on what your models are. And then there are additional fees for payment processors. This is something that you never really have to deal with because what it is on Kickstarter, people pay you by credit card. It's the only way they can pay for your rewards and their tiers. So for them to get something from you, they have to use a credit card. Credit cards charge fees, and Kickstarter, they pass that fees right along to you. And those are about 3%, roughly 3%. So you're looking at a total of 8% is of what you make is going to go to the Kickstarter platform for their fee and for the credit card fees. And then requires existing platform. You need that existing platform. It is very, very difficult. I wouldn't even try. My personal opinion is I would not try to do this if I did not have a platform. I am going to talk a little bit more about this later and give you my thoughts about it. All right, pros. Raises funds to help cover your costs. That's the biggest pro of Kickstarter is that you're going to be able to raise some money to cover the costs of what it takes to make your product. You build an audience and fan base. Like I said, if you've got your own audience and you come there to the platform and you get that audience going right there in the beginning, it's going to kick up the algorithm. You're going to find the audience that exists there on Kickstarter. Otherwise, they're probably not going to find you in most cases, depending on your category. What I could say with that is I think that at the time that my book was listed, if you search fantasy romance, now fantasy romance is not a separate category on Kickstarter, but you can search by fantasy romance. There was only like 4 other Kickstarters going on at the time that my Kickstarter was going on. That was fantasy romance. And for like the longest time, mine was outdoing the others. So I was like, I'm okay. I'm good with this. So I was probably getting extra coverage there from, and if you're doing better than the other ones, typically you'll be first on the page, not always. Sometimes I wasn't first on the page. I don't know what the difference is there, but if it does well, you can get the audience there, especially if they're looking for something specific like fantasy romance or horror or whatever it is that they're looking for. And the fan base, this is like a Kickstarter. Kickstarter is like a direct sales model. And the great thing about direct sales is that you can have that one-on-one with your fans. And if you can create that relationship and it's a good relationship and they like your writing and they like you and they respect you and you respect them, then you can create that fan base that's going to stick with you. And I had 122 backers, but 2 of those ended up dropping out. I had 120 backers. Of the 120 backers, I did ask them, did they want to be part of my newsletter list? And of those, one of the options was, I'm already on your newsletter list. And of those, I think there was like 40 something that was on my newsletter list already of the 120. And there were some who said no. And then I had fully 65 who said, yes, they wanted to be on my newsletter list. 65 out of 120, more than half want to be on my newsletter list. So I am building my fan base. 65 may not sound like a whole lot if you have a few thousand, but these are 65 people that you've connected with on a personal level, and you've brought them into your world. And hopefully they like it enough that they're going to stay there and become a good fan, a true fan. Market validation. Yes. Have you written that book and you're not sure if it's any good? Putting it on Kickstarter and it gets backed. Guess what? You've got that market validation. You know it's a good book. It generates excitement and buzz because, right, this is indexed by the search engines, and you can show this, you can, show it off, you can talk about it on social media. It does generate more excitement and buzz. And people are still kind of, there's a lot of people who don't know what Kickstarter is, and some who are just barely understanding what it is. Now is a good time to do a Kickstarter. I say that, and there's a couple of groups I'm part of who say, Kickstarter is not what it used to be, because it used to be you could do your Kickstarter campaign and easily make close to $10,000. Now it's hard to get to that $10,000 mark. For me, that wasn't my goal. My goal wasn't trying to get to $10,000. My goal was to cover my costs. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. Allows for pre-order sales. Is essentially your people are pre-ordering your book. You get to see who's pre-ordering your book and who's interested in your book. Again, it kind of goes back to that market validation, but it is allowing for those pre-order sales. More marketing opportunities, especially if you do some networking. Again, you have marketing there on the platform. If you come out strong with, having your backers and your audience that comes to the platform. And of course, flexibility and creative control. This is a huge one, especially in the indie author world. We like our flexibility. We like our creative control. And this allows that for sure. And I would say it's much more creativity is allowed, because you're not just selling an ebook and a paperback and a hardcover and an audiobook, which is pretty much all you can sell, like on Amazon or some of these other platforms, right? You get to sell other things. You get to be more creative. And if you do have that creative spirit, you can have that along with your Kickstarter. So I really enjoy that. And then engagement, and it's covering it up on my side. What does it say? Feedback, engagement and feedback. Yes. So you do have that one-on-one engagement with your audience, and you can also see what their feedback is. And it's easier to get that feedback if you want some feedback from them. Alrighty. Those are pros and cons. Now, compared to where else you can publish. Now, I just looked at Amazon. I had a bunch of numbers. I'm trying to remember if I can remember all my numbers and what they stood for. I ended up taking out some numbers because I was like, I don't think anybody else is going to care about these numbers. But overall, on the Kickstarter platform, there's been just over 604,000 projects have launched since 2009. They've raised $6.93 billion from successful campaigns since that time period. Now, this is broken down a little bit more here. If you see successfully funded projects, so they've done over 604,000 projects that have launched, but only of those, only 246,000 plus have been successful. That is a success rate of 40.7%. And this is all from Kickstarter's website. They have a stats page. They have another page where they give their stat for their success rate, which they say is 40.9%. So this is like 0.2% less. But when I pulled these stats, they were yesterday. And at the bottom of the page, it did say these stats were updated as of that day. So it could be that the 40.9% rate that they have for success rate is from, maybe a month or two or so ago, further in the past than now. So I think that's important here. And hello and welcome, Emma. Nice to see you. Crafting stuff would be great for it. Yes, Mr. Vlandis. And I had you in mind when I was saying how you can be creative, because if you guys didn't know, Mr. Vlandis, he creates all kinds of things and beautiful objects to go with all of his books and his world. So I also included here the publishing number, which you can see is 23,334. This is how many successfully funded projects have appeared on the platform since its inception in 2009. And if you look at what's that percentage of what's on the platform, that's around 9%. 9% of what's on Kickstarter have been publishing projects. Now, what I will say is this publishing does not include comics and illustrations. They have that as a separate category. And that number was smaller, but this publishing here incorporates everything else: children's book, literary fiction, nonfiction. It has everything else that's not comics and illustration. So, and 9%, that's actually a higher number than when some of the numbers I took out was from Amazon. I think on Amazon author books on Amazon was roughly like 4.4 something or 4.2. It was a 4 point something percentage of what's on Amazon are actually books or publishing related. And so then I also like to look at this one here. So of the launch projects, of that, this is a number, right? Oh, okay. Then this is how many have been launched compared to what was successful. So of publishing, 23,000 plus have been successful, but overall 62,000, almost 63,000 have been launched. So the actual like success rate for publishers on Kickstarter is around 37%, which is lower than its average of 40.7%. So just keep that in mind. Oops, what did it do? Okay, so now Amazon does not release a whole lot of figures. They do not release a whole lot of figures. They're very mum about some of the stuff. And some of these things you have to kind of tease out from what they say. And so here the research indicates that about 20% of authors on Amazon never sell a book. So if you look at that as being a failure rate, it's kind of hard to do one for one apples here, right? Apples to oranges. The success rate then would be 80% versus the 37% or 40%. So it's about half. Or if you look at failure rate, the failure rate on Kickstarter is 60%, where the failure rate on Amazon is 20%. So that's 3 times more likely to fail on Kickstarter than you are if you put your book on Amazon. So keep that in mind. I have some more figures. The next thing I looked at here was, okay, of the publishing successfully funded projects, how much did they make? What were the successful dollars? And so that was this next figure here, and that comes to $12,993. Now, this is an average. What this says is that if you're successful on Kickstarter, the average amount that the publishers make on there is around $12,993. Obviously, not everybody's making this. I only made the 3,000 something. Sanderson made 41 million. I'm pretty sure that skewed the figures. So this can range all over the place. And so it's kind of hard, again, to do these figures and look at it. But if you look at that, this is an average. What is the average for Amazon? Again, Amazon doesn't share exact figures. They say they pay over $520 million in royalties each year to over 1 million self-published authors. What does over mean? Is it 520 million and $1 or 1 cent that they pay in royalties to 1 million published authors? We don't know what this is, but if we take it at the figure that it is, what that means is that each author roughly makes around $520, and this is in a year. So in a year, they make $520. Again, these are rounded figures, okay? And they're average. Now, everybody's going to be in the average ballpark here. So if you look at the average of what you make from a Kickstarter campaign for a publisher is 12,000 compared to 520, that's 25 years of being on Amazon before you're going to hit the same number. So then the question then, and again, you may not hit that $12,993 with your campaign, but you also may not hit that $520. Most authors, from what Amazon has said, most authors sell less than 250 copies of their ebooks. And ebooks can, if you say an average ebook is around $3.99, so you're making $1 something. I'm trying to remember the figures. I had a lot of these figures up here. It would take a long time to hit that $520, making $1 plus on your ebook versus what, the $12,993. So you're getting one lump sum up front versus waiting, 25 years to hit that same number. So is the risk worth the reward? The risk in this case is that you have a higher chance of failing, but the reward is that you can make more money. I've already made more money from my Kickstarter campaign than I've made in the almost 2 years that I've been published. I hit 2 years in another month, in like 2 weeks. So a month and a half, I hit 2 years published. All right. So those are the benefits for authors and your pros and cons. Now let's move into the basics of Kickstarter campaigns. And hello, author DL Tillery. I'll have to watch the replay, the first 30 minutes on replay. No problem. Thanks. And Rachel says, fail, F-A-I-L, first attempt in learning. Yes. I can't remember who said it, but they said that they like to say it as you fail forward, especially when it comes to the indie author world. You fail forward, which means when you fail, you learn something to be more successful the next time that you do it. And even if you fail again, you become even more successful the next time, or the chances of your success increase the next time you try it. Because if we're seriously taking all of this into account, we're doing our research, we're doing what we can, I would say you have no choice but to succeed. Okay. If you are, being honest with yourself of what's working on a Kickstarter campaign or what's working on Amazon, and you're doing everything you can, you're doing your research and you're trying to honestly hit those goals, then I think anyone could be successful. That's my personal opinion. It may not be Right. All right. So basics of Kickstarter campaigns. I'm going to look at these 4 areas here. Let's start with types of campaigns authors can do. So there's 3 different types: fund a book, fund associated projects, or fund unrelated projects. And this is the worksheet or the sheet that I was trying to offer if you join my newsletter list. I put the wrong newsletter link up there for you to join my newsletter list. I don't know what I was doing there, but I will put the link in the description box below once this live is over. It probably may not be right away because I have a meeting with somebody, but I will get that down there. And I break all 3 of these out and what that can look like. I'm not going to go through all these different ones, but I would say the one that most people are going to do is fund a book. That is like a new book release, a special edition of a previous book, or special edition and omnibus. This can also be like a limited edition. So it might not be special, it might be limited. Limited that is only ever going to be on Kickstarter. And if you know you're doing a limited edition just for Kickstarter, you want to make sure you say that, because people love that. The audience on Kickstarter, they love that. They love stuff that is just for them. And some people also try to fund a book with saying it's the associated creation costs. That's like the book cover design, the editing, the stuff like that. I would not. I would do it as either a book release or a limited edition / special edition of a book. And Dana Claire, who's going to be on later, she has resources. She has tons of resources, and she has a direct link to a great resource for limited edition books and the different types you can get. And she says she plans on showing that during the live today. So hold on for that. And then the key here is tying your rewards directly to the process of creating the book. And that's why I think associated creation costs, I wouldn't say I'm doing a campaign to cover my costs. So I did it to cover my book, but I did say and tie it to the fact that I hope that I'm not going into debt with my next book being released. So, we tie directly to the process of creating the book so backers feel invested in, this is like covering up part of my screen, in bringing the project to life. I didn't memorize these, so I don't know what it's saying. All right, fund associated projects. This can include things like book trailers, merch, or events. I've seen a few of these, not in my genre. And so I didn't really pay attention whether or not these were actually successful, but they can be. So I would do research. The key here is that the campaigns support the overall book release, even if not funding the book itself directly. Backers still feel connected to the overall project. And that would be my main thing, to always connect it back to the book itself. And then the next one is fund unrelated projects. So this could be like community initiatives, like a literary journal or writing retreat. And again, I have a lot more that I have put into the document that I give you. And I really like this idea of the writing retreat one. I think this would be difficult to sell as a Kickstarter, but I think you could do it if you say all the authors going on this writing retreat will be writing a short story, which will go into an anthology, and all backers for the writing retreat will get the anthology. Something along those lines. You are connecting it to a book then that you're going to be giving to everybody. The key is to connect the unrelated project to the author's passion for books writing and helping promote literature in some way. The campaign and rewards can tie into the author's platform, even if not directly promoting a book. And I think this could be partially hard to do, but like if you are trying to build your own publishing company, this might be something that you want to do. Maybe you have some authors that you have signed already. If you have your own publishing company and you want to raise funds to hire better editors or something, you could do something along those lines where then you offer the author's books as part of the Kickstarter campaign. Always remember that you want to tie in a physical product in some way. Kickstarters were built, the whole platform is built off of physical products. You always want to have some type of physical product that is part of your campaign. All right, so yes, the types of Kickstarter campaigns, that was the document. I am going to fly through these next couple slides because it was the wrong link. You can't get it at this moment, but you can get it through the link that I'm going to put in the description box below. I'm not going to fly through. I'm going to skip through because I don't even want them to be on screen. I messed it up. Here we go. All right. Setting funding goal and timeline. Now, this is going to be kind of an overview, a little bit of what this means, funding goal and timeline, for those who don't know what this means. And then I'm going to go into more detail later on in the presentation. So setting a funding goal and your timeline. The funding goal, that's the money you want to raise. The minimum amount that you need to make what is promised and fulfill all the rewards. So if you kind of think back what I said when I was showing the successful campaigns, some of the success stories, the one that was the glow in the dark limited edition, I can't imagine how much that would cost. It had to be a good amount to pay for that. Just looking at limited edition books with like gold foil or sprayed edges. Those are expensive. I can only imagine what a glow in the dark cover would cost. And they raised $800+ Is that really enough to cover the cost of making those books and getting it to the backers? It could be. I didn't look into the specifics of that campaign. I think they only had like 15 backers. So maybe the backers all paid like, I don't know, $60 or something. That's probably more than $800, but maybe they paid enough of a fee that it was going to cover the cost of that book for each one. So you want to make sure that whatever minimum amount you put in for the money you want to raise is going to cover what you're promising to give to your backers and fulfill all the rewards. And you want to figure out a budget. I am going to go into a little more detail about that later in the presentation. And the timeline, how long is your campaign going to last? And on the Kickstarter platform, it can last anywhere from 1 to 60 days. It used to be 90 days, but it is 1 to 60 days now. Rachel says hot take, sprayed edges are overhyped and don't look all that great. And I've had someone ask me if I was going to do sprayed edges on my campaign. And I was like, the cost, I could not justify the cost of it. There was no way it was going to be worth it for me. I would lose money trying to do sprayed edges. But I've thought about it maybe for future ones. So I don't know. I've never gotten one with sprayed edges before, so I have no idea. Hi, Richard. Welcome. All right. And statistically, and this is from Kickstarter's own website, okay? So they have these figures on there, and they have these figures that they have figured out since 2009. It's the reason. It's one of the biggest reasons why they went down from 90 days to 60 days, because they found that projects lasting 30 days or fewer have the highest success rates. And they do have a threshold for what's too short, and I don't remember what that was. I feel like it's like 14 days or something like that, but I don't remember. They do have a threshold where it's not as profitable. You don't have as high of a success rate. My campaign was 39 days. I know I went outside of this, but I did have a very good reason for doing mine for 39 days. I would have followed the rule of doing 30 days or fewer if I didn't have a very specific reason. And my very specific reason was that the very expensive course that I took, they suggested that I start my campaign the day before the authortube writing conference so that I had one day to build momentum in the campaign and then go into the conference with some momentum going and then tap into the large audience that was there. And this was the end of June. And I thought we're about to head into July. And my author platform is here on YouTube. And all I could think about was July is Camp Nano. There's going to be a ton of people doing sprints. This is going to be a good time for me to go to people's channels and, support them during their sprints and then, hawk my campaign. And I had it in my head that it was going to take me the entire time to fund my goal, which was $1,000. And I had planned to go on someone's channel. I had it already set up with her to be on her channel that last day of my campaign, which was the last day of Camp NaNoWriMo. I thought it would be perfect. Like, hey, last day of Camp NaNoWriMo, last day to get the book. And I really think it was to take me all the way to that last day to get it funded. It was actually funded in less than 72 hours. So I was thrown for a surprise for sure. And I'm glad. But yeah, I don't think I would do 39 days again. I would definitely do something shorter next time. What about success rates? We already kind of looked at that. On their website, they say 40.9%. When we do the numbers ourselves, it's 40.7%. Of course, for authors and publishers, it's 37%. So you definitely want to take that into account when it comes to the success rates. Note, when it comes to your funding goal and your timeline, you cannot change these once you launch your project. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple of different ways that you can share your project and show your project without actually launching it. At any point in there, you can still change things. But once it actually launches, when it's out there and people can actually go there and click and back you, you can no longer change things. So this is where you really want to spend your time. And that's what most of this lecture, this presentation is covering. All of the stuff you need to think about and put and to consider before you launch your project to make sure that you're going to have a campaign that's going to be successful and is not going to make you go in debt, because there have been people who have set a funding goal, and when they finished their Kickstarter, it was successful, but they ended up paying people to have them back them because they went in debt. They didn't figure out their budget correctly. You don't want to be in that position. So now she estimated 2 hours and then some after. Yeah, so it's about 2 hours for this. And then I'm bringing on Dana Claire, who is a marketing and sales and public speaker. She is going to share some information, roughly about 20 minutes. There's some Q&A, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end. Her and I, we're both going to share our best tip for launching a Kickstarter campaign from what we just did. Her Kickstarter started like at the end of mine or right after mine ended. It was after mine ended. It was right after mine ended. So when hers started and hers completed not too long ago. But yeah. All right, so now rewards and stretch goals. Again, we're covering basics, so these are broad. I will go into a little more detail with these a little bit later. Rewards is what people do to support what you're doing. So this is what they buy, and they're called backers when they buy it because they're backing you on this reward. And this is what they're doing to support you and what you are doing. They want to feel like they're getting something in return, and the rewards let them share in your work. So this could be something as simple as the ebook, the paperback, the hardback, or hardcover, and the audiobook. It could be something as simple as that. But again, people, the audience on Kickstarter, they like that interesting stuff. They like that cool stuff. So I would always try to figure out at least one item that would be different, that they wouldn't get anywhere else. And it can be different from other Kickstarter creators and what they're doing, or it can be the same. But as long as it's something that they can't get, like on Amazon or from your website or from anywhere else, they can only get it. It's a limited edition or it's limited only to Kickstarter. They're going to be happy. Rewards are simple. You're publishing a book, for example, you offer copies of your book. Stretch goals. These are useful when you can't change your funding goal. Okay. Like I said, remember, when you launch a project, you can't change your funding goal. Mine was $1,000. I blew by that $1,000 before the end of 72 hours. And now I was like, okay, now how do you get people to keep funding you? And, I don't know this from personal experience, but listening to other Kickstarter people who have done Kickstarters for many years, if you don't do anything more, then people are not going to back you anymore. You will get what you have been funded for. So you want to do something to generate interest. And this is where stretch goals come in play. This is where you can say, hey, if we add another $100 in the next 24 hours, everybody will get this. And it doesn't have to be that. It could be a times goal. It could be, and either way, if it's a time goal, right, you're still adding more monetary value or money onto your Kickstarter. So it is a way to keep getting yourself funded through the platform. Once the goal is reached, of course, some projects add incentives, and this is what they call stretch goals. You have new features or colors or gift to backers, depending on whatever it is that you have. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about what stretch goals you can have because there's just not time in this session. But if this is something you might be interested in, when I remind you guys, let me know what else you'd like me to do a masterclass on. This could be something if you're interested in that. All right. And then the all or nothing funding model. And this is the kicker. If your project doesn't reach its goal, then the funds don't get collected and no money changes hands. Now, I tried to find everywhere and anywhere that I could find what is the minimum amount that you can have your funding goal be. Can it be $1? That'd be kind of crazy, but can it be $1? And what's the maximum? And I couldn't find it anywhere what anybody said, what the minimum or maximum was. Now, Kickstarter provided the minimum and maximum of what a backer could pay. The minimum is $1 and the maximum is $10,000. So there are minimum maximums for your Kickstarter backers. And so I don't know what this is, but I would say that probably what I see as being the norm at the lowest level is $500. So if you put your goal at $500 and at the end of the timeline that you chose, whether that's 14 days or 30 days or the full 60 days, when you get to the end of that timeline, if you've made $499.99, you have not met your funding goal and you don't get any of that money and nobody gets any of your rewards. So that's what it means by an all or nothing funding model. You have to hit your funding goal by the end of your timeline. And that's why these two things are important to be able to know how to use these in conjunction with each other. All right, Q&A period. Does anyone have a question that they would like answered? I'm going to get some water here. I haven't seen any questions come through here, so which may mean you're holding off until we got to this point, which would be great. But $100 billion Dr. Evil post would be nice, right? $100 million. And it's something I forgot to mention. I was showing figures earlier. How if you look at the overall amount of money, right, $6.93 billion have been raised by Kickstarter. And of that, the portion that the authors have made is, I don't remember, what was the number? 600,000? No, I feel like that's the wrong number. It's not very big. The portion of that money that Kickstarter has made is not very big compared to the rest of the Kickstarter platform. And what I would say for that, you have to take in consideration that publishing tends to be, under 1,000 all the way up to, you have 41 million from Sanderson, but that is not typical. I think that most Kickstarters I see that get high in numbers, it hits somewhere between, 15 to 30,000. That's kind of where I see high numbers go when they go high. So we may think of that as a lot, But there are people who are designing innovative technologies and trying to get started on and get funded on Kickstarter. And now you're talking about thousands of dollars for someone to back them just for like a reward tier. One reward tier is $1,000. So I wouldn't look at that. I don't know if anyone did see those numbers and think, oh, well, publishers are not making as much money on the platform as like other people are. Well, it don't really take, $1 million for us to create our book. It would be nice if, we could make $1 million to create our book, but no, it's not what we get. What do I get for my 10,000? Nothing for me. How do I get collabs for my Kickstarter? Oh, that's a good question. I actually do bring that up a little bit later. I don't say a whole lot about it, and I'm not sure what you really mean by collabs. There is a way to network, and I will reinforce this later. When you get on the Kickstarter platform and you know that you're probably going to do this, you want to get on there and start backing people, especially in your genre. And this could be as little as $1. Most of them are going to have something at $1 value. I promise I ate, but I have the hiccups. So you want to go and start backing them, and it is a way for them to learn who you are. And of course, if you like the project, back them for more, and then tell them what you like about it. Rachel oh my gosh, Rachel was so awesome. She's taught me a lot just from me watching her and what she did, how she backed me, and then the things that she would say and the way she would, cheer me on. And so when mine was completing and my Kickstarter was completing, I was realizing all these things that she did. This is part of networking. I don't know if she purposely thought about it as networking, but it is networking, right? It's the same thing as going on YouTube and leaving comments and likes and subscribes on people's channels. You want to do this with other people, and you can't really comment on a person. Most likely you can't comment on their campaign unless you back them. So that's why you want to do that $1. But after seeing what she did, and then Dana launched her campaign. Now, I met Dana when she first backed me on my campaign, and then I found out who she was, and she's actually a force in the industry. And she backed me because her Kickstarter was about to start. She hadn't started. Hers didn't start until after mine, but she backed me. And so when hers started, I went and did for her what Rachel did for me. I learned and I applied. And so this is a way to create a good network and to get to know people. And in the future, or even during your Kickstarter campaign, you can reach out to people. Hey, how about if we cross promo? You cross promo when you do your newsletters, right? You have newsletter swaps where you cross promo with another author. You tell your newsletter about their great book and they tell their newsletter about your great book. Same thing with Kickstarter campaigns. It's the exact same model. Okay. But you can do it doubly because you have the update page on Kickstarter where when you send updates, you say, hey, here's a great campaign to go check out. And I always made sure that I included campaigns that I knew were worthwhile. I think I backed every single one of them too. And then in my newsletter, I also included that in my newsletter because not everybody in my newsletter was backing me on my campaign. And it is a great way before you even get your Kickstarter going. Put some of those Kickstarter campaigns into your newsletter. Say, hey, I just backed this Kickstarter campaign. Because guess what? Your newsletter subscribers, they may not know what Kickstarter is. And if you slowly warm them up to the idea, you tell them what Kickstarter is, you show them some examples, you're warming them up. You're getting them warmed up for your Kickstarter. I didn't think about that strategy until after I was already going. I did think about the strategy of warming them up to what a Kickstarter was, but I didn't think about the strategy of including other Kickstarter campaigns in my my newsletter that I sent out. And I should have done that. That was a great idea. It's a great tip. I learned that tip from somebody else. I didn't come up with that. So I had heard it later, and I really wish I would have done that. Question, do you think it's easier to get funded if you have a smaller goal? I think it might be easier to get funded with a smaller goal if you have a small audience or if you're unsure. So I told myself to do just $500. I told myself that's all I should do. But when I really looked at my costs, I knew that I needed to make around $800+ in order to cover my costs for my book. And that was the whole reason behind me doing my Kickstarter, was to cover the cost of creating my book so that I wasn't going in debt as I did with my first series. And of course, I didn't want to do my Kickstarter for $800 or whatever. I've seen people do Kickstarters for like a weird number. If that's what you want to do, go for it. It could generate interest, honestly. But I thought $1,000 is a nice round number. I thought if I made $1,000, and I remember figuring it all out, if I made $1,000 after paying and, paying for everything to be produced, created, shipped, everything being done, Kickstarter fees, everything, and covered my creation costs for my book. After all was said and done, I was going to walk away with like $160, like $161 and some change, I think it was. And I was like, well, my cover costs $235, so that almost covers my next cost of my next book. So, I think that I would do this, I would do a smaller goal for two reasons. One, if you want to start off just testing it out and testing your audience and seeing how it would work and seeing what you could possibly do, and you don't plan to offer a whole lot. So this might be just like the ebook and the paperback, and it may not even be the hardback. Again, I would try to get at least one item that was limited for Kickstarter itself, make them feel special in some way. It doesn't have to be expensive. It could be something little. And then I would do that. Just if I could go back in time, I would have done that. I would have done a Kickstarter maybe for my box set that I did last year, just to see, what my audience, to start warming up my audience to it, what I could get from it. And that I might have done for just $500. So, but I didn't. I thought, no, I want to do it for my next series, because in my mind, I'm like, I'm done with the YA fantasy. I'm done with that series. It doesn't sell very well. It sells, but not very well. I don't want to do anything where collecting an audience on that series when I'm changing over to this genre of fantasy romance, and I'm going to stick with this series for a long time. So that was the biggest reason why I didn't do it. The other reason why I would do it is if you are just very unsure, because having a $500 campaign goal or $250 campaign goal, you're most likely going to hit it. You're most likely going to hit it. The issue then comes in, what are you offering, and can you cover the cost of production, shipping, and handling with $250 or $500, whatever it is you do. So is it easier to get funded? Probably. I would say probably. And I would say for you, like DL Tillery, like for you in your position, you've got your platform on YouTube. I don't know what your newsletter list looks like, but you do have a platform here on YouTube. You could easily, I think, hit that $500 easily. I think that's my thought anyways. There's one right now that's almost 170K raised for a special edition. Is that the one, Annette Marie, I think it is, or whatever? I read Winter, her first book, like over a year ago. She says there's romance in it. That first book didn't have a whole lot of romance. It was more of a romantic fantasy. It was more fantasy with a romance subplot. And, but I loved it. But because I changed over to fantasy romance, I didn't continue her series. And when I saw that she had that up there the first day, I mean, I saw it before she launched it. She had it where she had the pre-launch page up, and I followed it. But when I went on there, she does not have a low tier. She has like a low tier, I don't know, $10, $15, $20, whatever. I think it's $20, but you don't get the book. You get like bookmarks and cards or something. I don't remember what it is. And I'm like, but I want a book, not this stuff. I want an actual book. And I'd like to get the whole series. And the next one up is like $135. And I'm like, there's no way. I'm not paying $135 for a special edition. I would be okay just getting an omnibus that's not special in any way, and I would have backed her, but that's okay. She's still making lots of money. I take writers supporting writers to the max on shoestring budget. Yes. I'm not gonna lie, I'm terrified. I was terrified too, Aphrodite. Oh my gosh, you guys do not know. I think it's one of the reasons why I stopped sleeping that last week, because I was so terrified that it was not going to fund. I was terrified of that. Well, you probably get to this later, but do you send physical stuff other than your book or your writing? So are you talking about having physical tiers, like physical rewards and stuff? Yeah, I do talk about that. I feel you need to build your campaign around a physical product. And if you don't, you need to make sure that there are physical products and that is heavily promoted in some way on your page. It's very hard to get things funded when it's not physical. So yeah. Hi, Deidre. How are you doing? Looking through to see if there's any other questions. And I just started reading her books over the summer. So talking about that, it's got to be a fierce fandom. Yeah, it's got to be a fierce fandom. All I can say is she's missing out, because she's made $170,000. But imagine how much she could be making if she had a lower tier that was more reasonable, that maybe wasn't as special as those high tiers. Like, she could still keep those high tiers, but maybe have something that was not as special at a lower tier. I would have got the 3 books as an ebook edition, like a omnibus, an ebook omnibus box set, whatever you want to call that. I would have done that. I would have gotten it, but she didn't offer it. So no. And she's missing out on my money, because I'm not gonna pay $135 for it. Just not gonna do it. I'm more of a fantasy with a romantic subplot kind of girl anyway, so it's right up your alley. Yeah. Which is why I was kind of worried writing my Beauty and the Beast retelling. Yeah, because that's definitely a romance story. Question: when do you have to send the gifts to your backers, during the Kickstarter or after? So you do not send any of the rewards until your Kickstarter ends, and that's at the end of the timeline that you have picked out before it launches, right? That's a timeline you can't change when it launches. So once it's launched, it's done. When that ends, you don't want to start sending stuff out right away, because it takes like a week for all the credit card stuff to be run with your Kickstarter backers. And then most people wait 2 weeks, because at the 2-week mark is when the money hits your account. So there are some who send out like the ebooks right away and things like that. I would hold off until you see who gets charged. And you do see that pretty quickly, because there's always going to be people whose credit card didn't work for some reason or another. And I was fully prepared that I was going to lose some backers due to credit cards not working or going through or whatever it was. I did have 4 that didn't work, for whatever reason, it didn't work. And Kickstarter lets them know, but from the classes I took and stuff, they say you should reach out yourself. So I did. I just reached out. I was like, hey, by the way, your Kickstarter showing that, I don't remember exactly what I said, but basically just say, hey, by the way, this didn't work. You might have to try a different method, blah, blah, blah. And all 4 of them went in and fixed it. And so I didn't have a single drop due to credit card, which I was several drops because of credit card issues. So, all righty, let's go ahead and get started back into the next part of the presentation. All right, determine your Kickstarter project. The 4 main goals here. I'm going to break these down into further points. So let's get going on identifying goals. And again, this part's very similar to when you decide you want to publish your book or your product. You have to do all of these things when you want to publish your book. So this may not take as much extra time as the beginning part would. Like the beginning part of what I talked about would take extra time, because Kickstarter is a whole new platform that you have to learn. What you're doing here is what you would do for your book anyways if you're trying to self-publish. Now, if you're traditionally publishing, you may only need to figure out parts of this to put it to your query letter to your agent, or to the agents you're applying to. All right, identifying goals. This is defining your project's goals and your objectives. What is your goal in trying to launch your book? Now, here with Kickstarter specifically, what's your aim to achieve with Kickstarter campaign? Is it to fund the publication of a new book, create an audiobook, embark on a special creative project? And you have to identify your goal when you're self-publishing, right? Your goal is, I want to get my book out on Amazon, or I want to get my book out on a wide platform, or I want to get it out into a subscription platform. And this is what I want to do. So either way, you have to identify your goals. So you want to identify what your goals are for Kickstarter, which are slightly different than goals that you would choose from for a publishing platform. And that's different from goals you would choose from if you're doing like a subscription platform, like on Ream or Patreon or Ko-fi. So it has its own thing. So you have to figure out what your goals are. Knowing the core purpose helps to shape your goal. So what's the core purpose of what you want to do that helps shape your goals? And all of this builds into creating your story. Your story is your sales page on Kickstarter. When you go to a Kickstarter campaign page and you look and you see what they're offering, and they have all those words on there and all those images, that's what Kickstarter calls the story. And you can think of this as like your sales page, like on Amazon, when you go to a book and you're looking at that page that book is on, and you're looking at all the specifics and everything that goes into that book, and the book description and how many reviews it has, that's the sales page. So this is the sales page. Identifying your goal, knowing your core purpose, all of this is going to help you create the best sales page, your best story for your Kickstarter. All right, you should convey this to your audience on Kickstarter. It's something you can't do on retailer platforms. This is very hard to do. And the reason why is because you can have like a section on your story that says, these are my goals for doing my Kickstarter. You're not going to put that on your sales page for your book, right? You're not going to put on Amazon, please buy my book because my last series, I went into debt. And so I really need to sell this, which is essentially what I said. I didn't say it in that way, but that's essentially what I said on my Kickstarter page. I'm not going to put that on my book on Amazon because it's different, right? On Kickstarter, you get to connect one-on-one with your backers. They get to connect with you. They get to see a part of you. So learning more about your story makes them feel more connected. On Amazon, they're buying from Amazon. They don't think of it in terms of they're buying from you, the author. So if you put something out there that looks like a plea for them to buy your book, I think it kind of goes against social proof, right? It shows that, oh, nobody had bought her previous series. Nobody bought it. So she's not good. And if nobody bought her previous series, why am I going to buy this? So that social proof goes down in the eyes of the people there because they're not looking at you as an actual person. So they're looking at you as more a product than a person. Okay. Why Kickstarter? And this is where I put it, right? So I love publishing Writing and publishing my works for others to read, but it can be difficult to continue publishing with the upfront costs, paying for a good editor, cover designer. If you guys have done this already, you know what I'm talking about. Some of you guys pay for formatters. There's other costs associated with putting together a good book. I'm still the negative of my first series. I make money every month, and I still make money every month. This has actually been a slow month for me, but I still have made money. But at the current rate, which my current rate is about $20 a month is what I make. I'm going to be 80 years old before I break even, if I'm still alive. Hopefully I am. But and then as I was putting my Kickstarter page together, and I knew that this was my why for my why am I doing Kickstarter? And this is directly off of my story page, my sales page on Kickstarter. So when I was putting this all together and I was doing more research and I was going to more classes and I was listening to other people, I was like, and this is when AI was really taking off in November, right? So I really started getting more serious between November and February with trying to do more research and stuff like that. And this is when AI was taking off. And I was like, there's going to be a flood of books from AI. And we've seen that. We've already seen it on Amazon. There's already a huge amount of books on Amazon. And now we're going to have a flood from AI. How are you going to get visibility when it's already hard to do it without the AI books being there? Okay. And so flood of books entering the market. Here's another, every day is getting harder for visibility. And that's why I put, Kickstarter offers a wonderful way to find other people, to connect with other people, introduce my work to audiences in a novel way. Of course, pun intended on that one. All right. So there's that. My goal was to be able to publish my next book without going into debt. That was my goal. That was my purpose. That's the whole reason why I wanted to do a Kickstarter. All right. Campaign type. You want to explore different types of campaigns that are author related to Kickstarter, exploring different types of author related Kickstarter projects. So, and we kind of talked about this already, the Fund the Book, Associated Project, and unrelated projects. Again, I think most of us are going to fall under this, funding a book. So these include like limited editions or collector's editions, omnibuses, volume sets, complete book series, or single novels. I will say that from what I have seen, and I've seen this a lot in my genre, but I've seen this in other genres as well. The things that do the best are like your limited or special or collector's editions of a single novel or a collection, like an omnibus. Volume sets I've kind of seen, they don't do so bad. And complete book series. So those could be the volume set, depending on how they're setting it up, but complete book series as well. That's what usually typically does well. That was another reason why I was like really stressed over doing my campaign on a single book, because single novels don't tend to do as well. They are actually doing better now than when I was doing my research. So, but the best ones are those that do the limited editions, especially if it's a limited edition or special edition of an omnibus or collection of stories or books. Do your research. I'm going to say that a lot, guys. Do your research. And like other publishing platforms, everything is always changing. So what you do research on now can change. There is one thing that changed right before I started setting up my Kickstarter campaign. It would change for the better, which was that your reward tiers, which are on the right-hand side of your story page when someone goes to your campaign page, it used to be just words. It had the title and the words and the cost for the reward tier. Right before I started my campaign, they put it where you can have images for your reward tiers. And I was like, heck yes, I'm doing that, because images are important. So the two things I will impress upon you: do your research. You make sure you do your images. Images I think are the most important thing when it comes to your campaign, but you can't do your images unless you got all this other stuff in place. So remember that. So yeah. And then there was something that changed in the middle of me setting up my campaign that kind of screwed up a lot of few things. And I had to reach out to some of my backers. I'm like, hey, by the way, you did this. I just want to make sure this is what you want to do, because if not, you can still, not support this. And it was basically they were paying double for things, which shouldn't have happened. But because it changed in the middle of me setting up my campaign, I didn't see that happening. So then I had to reach out. And so, I lost some money. It wasn't really my money, but because people caught it, right? And I still missed a couple all the way up through to the end of the campaign. And of course, some of them were like, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't understand how this works. I'm like, it's not on you. Kickstarter changed the rules. So it's constantly changing. You want to keep up with it. All right. Next is your target audience. You want to identify your target audience and your backers. Again, same thing you want to do. If you're a self-published author or a traditionally published author, you want to know who your audience is. Who is going to back your book? This starts with your genre. And then on Kickstarter, this does go by filters. Okay. So you can search by filters on Kickstarter. And as of September 2023, and I do see that these things are going to change. The filters are these two. I talked about this already. You have comics and illustration, and then you have publishing. So these are the two that basically cover anything that comes to publishing a book of some type. And under publishing, there's further filters that breaks down into, and these are the only ones, guys. These are the only ones. Children's book, comedy, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and young adult. Well, what if you have a young adult romance? Or what if I've seen some young adult books that say young adult on them, and they're in the like fantasy romance category instead. Like they're over in that page versus in the, and you can see there's no fantasy romance here, but you can search by fantasy romance. That's the difference. You can search by fantasy romance. And so I've looked at some of these books and I'm like, okay, this is adult, young adult. And I would, I found it in the, when I search for fantasy romance. And so then I go search in the young adult and it's not there, which means they probably put it under fiction. So some of these, it can be kind of hard for you to try to figure out, where do you belong? Right. So, I don't know why young adult is split out different from fiction when there's nothing else that's split out from fiction, but there it is. And I like I said, things are constantly changing. I think they're going to change that. And yeah, doesn't mean that this won't change. Do your research. There it is again. Do your research. Always do your research. Your unique selling proposition, your USP. Again, this is something that every author should figure out about their own work. No matter what publishing path you're taking, what publishing plan you're putting together, the USP is what's unique about your work. And I'm going to give you a bunch of different ideas here of what could be unique about your work. But basically, USP gives backers an inside look at the value your book can provide readers in that genre. All right. Let's look at some of these. This could be identify the core genre theme and explain how your book puts a fresh spin on it. What makes your take unique? Maybe you don't have that one. Maybe you haven't said highlight if your book features an underrepresented person or voice or perspective in the genre. Like, for instance, I do have an anxiety rep in my representation in my book. I could have highlighted that. I decided to highlight something else. I don't think you should highlight everything that could be unique about your book, because then it could be overwhelming. Pick the things that you think that are going to work the best for your genre. And I still made it clear that there was anxiety representation by putting my tropes up there, right? I put it in my tropes image, and I'm going to show you guys a little bit more of my site if you haven't seen it. Describe the compelling main character and what makes readers want to follow their journey. I've seen this one done a lot, actually. The USP, this has been a huge USP that I've seen authors on Kickstarter use. Is your setting used in an innovative way? Convey the imaginative world that you have created. Share an intriguing premise that grabs attention and leaves readers wanting more. The thing that I knew that was going to grab my readers' attention, that was going to grab almost anyone's readers' attention, was I have dragons. Dragons get people's attention in the fantasy genre. And in fantasy romance, it is becoming more and more popular, actually. I was just looking at the books currently publishing on Amazon in fantasy romance, and there are quite a few with dragons. And I've looked at like 3 books in the last few days that each of those 3 books had like something in the book description that exists in my book. And I'm like, what are the chances? What are the chances that I am writing something? Like, one had ice dragons. I have ice dragons, One had, I don't remember now. I don't remember what it was. But yeah, they each had like something that was unique, I thought, to my book. And they've got that unique proposition beyond just the dragon part. And so I'm like, okay, this is really becoming popular. So yes, that was my unique proposition. I have dragons along with a Beauty and the Beast retelling or vibes from Beauty and the Beast, along with magic, shifters, curses. That was my unique selling proposition, was combining all of those together, which hadn't been put together that I had seen up to this point. At least not all of those. I've seen parts of those put together, but not everything that I had. If you're writing nonfiction, you can establish your upfront expertise and insight readers won't find elsewhere. That would be your USP. Convey the emotional experience readers will get from your book. Make it relatable. You can also reference other successful books only to explain your inspired approach and not duplicated content. And I did put some of the other books that was like my book, and I actually got these from my beta and alpha readers. I asked them to tell me what my book reminded them of, which book it reminded them of, or what other authors. And so I got all of that information from my readers. And, you want to say, if you want to, that it's similar, right? I'm sure that you guys have seen these on books. Like, if you like books by like so-and-so, you might like this book or something along those lines. But I have also seen a writer, an author on Kickstarter. It's the only one I've ever seen do this, where she said she grew up and her favorite stories were this, and this. There was like 3 books. And she wanted to write something that combined something from all 3 books. And so then she broke down what she liked about each book and how she made her characters unique based off of those things that she got from those books, and then how she put that together into a story. And that, I was like engrossed in her story. And she had a long story, which typically when I see a long story, I skim through and I move on. I don't stick with long stories. I just don't have the attention for it, I don't think, to read a long story. So, but that one had me. It really hooked me. Reference other successful books. Nope, I already said that one. Let's go to the next slide. Lead with a hook, build your intrigue, explain what void in the market your book uniquely fills. If that's your USP, make sure you lean into it. Tell your story with passion and purpose so backers connect with you and your vision authentically. I have seen a lot of authors on Kickstarter do this. I've seen a lot of them talk about their passion for writing this story. And I didn't include this in my story on my actual page, but I included this in my introduction video, which was that when I wrote my first series, my first trilogy, I realized I did everything I could to include a dragon. Even though that I wrote my story was set in 3rd century Ireland, and during the 3rd century Ireland mythology, there was only one dragon left alive because the Christian monks had killed all the other ones. And there's Pashta. Pashta was the only one left. And I wanted a dragon in my book, and I put him in there, and he got a bigger and bigger part as each book went in the series. He got a bigger part because I really wanted a dragon. And when I finished that series, I was like, I really like dragons. I like dragons. So you know what? Let's do dragons. I want to write about dragons. So I did talk about that. I talked about in my introduction video how I realized that I had a passion for dragons and I wanted to do something with dragons, but something different, not fire breathing dragons, like ice dragons, something different. And so I did include that. What makes your product both unique in the marketplace and better than your competitors' options? That's what you want to look at when you're trying to figure out what your USP is. And this could also be like, you can think about this, the coolness factor is cool. Dragons are cool. So I have a coolness factor with dragons. All right. You want to craft a compelling and unique project pitch. This is your USP. This is not supposed to be really long. And but it is important for your sales page and setting up your story. You want to keep it concise, genuine, and compelling. Make sure that it is honestly representing the work that you're doing. All right, do your research. There it is again. Do your research. Look at how other people are doing it on Kickstarter. The USP, I think, is different on Kickstarter only because you can make that one-on-one connection with people who are coming to your page versus you trying to figure out how to include that when you're writing your Amazon sales page where you can't really make that one-on-one connection. So yeah. All right, questions. Another question and answer period. All right, this looks like it's going quite a while, a lot longer than I thought it would be, possibly. All right, let's look at the questions. When do you have to send gifts? Okay, we talked about that one. So it's after the Kickstarter. And to be honest, Jennifer, when you're setting up your reward, when you're setting up your tiers and your rewards and your add-ons, you're putting in there when you think you're going to deliver it. Hiccups. When you think it's going to be delivered. And I would say, I was told, give yourself like an extra month longer than what you think you need. And I told myself I should do that. But then when I started setting up, I was like, oh, no, I think I can get it done now. I wish I would have done an extra month longer because now I think I need that with all the issues that I've been having with my print files with Ingram Spark. It's mostly been Ingram Spark that's been issues. And Ingram Spark is having a ton of issues because I went to, there's Facebook groups and stuff like that for Kickstarter. And in the Facebook group, like some were doing special editions of their hardbacks. And so they ordered it to their house so they could sign it. And this happened like 2 different authors. The same thing happened. That one, she got it in. It had the paperback, the full paperback wrap, not paperback, a hardcover wrap on it. It was the one to her second book because it was her second book. But when she took it off, it was her first book underneath. And every single book was the same way. It was the first book with the second book's hardcover wrap on it. And that happened to 2 different authors. So yes, they're having some issues. I'm considering offering a special edition of my novel Shattered first instead of the graphic novel that I had planned on doing. What are your thoughts? 2 different markets on Kickstarter. And I think that's why they have, like a graphic novel would probably fall under comics. You want to do under comics and illustration versus publishing. 2 different audiences there. The comics and illustration audience, they will pay money. Because they know it costs money to do illustrated editions, illustrated novels and graphic novels and stuff like that. They will pay you money for it. But I don't know how you get into the audience there. There's probably a way. Russell Nolte would be a good one to get in contact with because that's what he does. He does a bunch of comics. He has novels too, but he mostly does comics. Go support him on some of his comics. He's got one that just launched today, I think it was. He does a Kickstarter like every few weeks. And his only lasts like 2 weeks or less is I think he doesn't ever do his very long. But I would start getting into, if you want to do that, that's what I would do. If it was me, I'd be quaking my boots trying to do a graphic novel because I don't know anything about it. But it's on you. What you feel that you could sell. A special edition, I think, of your novel would do fine. I don't know what to tell you on the other one because I don't know how it would do. I couldn't give you an honest response on it. Images of my tome stuff I make, caught up in deadlines that I'll have to catch this on the replay. Oh, no reason. Oh, no reason. No worries. Deidre, I'll catch you later. All right. Is it better to have the book completely written before starting Kickstarter? I'm assuming yes, but I have ideas. Okay. Yes. 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 You want to assure, especially if this is your first Kickstarter. If you've done a few Kickstarters, you've got your audience who's been with you, you've been, fulfilling your Kickstarter campaigns, no problem. They know they're getting it from you. Then I think you could be okay if you haven't finished one. But I saw over and over again that when people put into their story, this novel is complete, now you just have to ship it, because there's a risks section that you fill out on the Kickstarter page. Now they make you fill it out, right? They have a section that says risks and you fill it out as part of during your Kickstarter page. You want to put your risks in there. And so I put the risks in there that the novel is done, it's complete, but shipping times and paper shortages, blah, 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 blah. You can get that from looking at other people. You can see what their risks are right now. There were some that they put onto their page that it was not done and that they were looking to get funded so they could complete it, right? So those are the associated costs with completing a novel. Talked about that at the beginning. And not a single one of those that I saw. Now, there might be some further back because I didn't go that far back. I think I went back like 1 to 2 years is all further I went back. But all the ones I saw where they stated the novel was not done, they did not get funded. They didn't. The Kickstarter backers, they want to know that it's done. They want to know it's done. If it's not done, but you're almost there, I would just say don't say anything about it. But by saying it is done, I think that you're giving a sense of, what am I thinking of? It gives them a sense that they are going to receive the product from you, especially if you're new. They don't know who you are. They don't know if you're actually, there are people who get fully funded with their Kickstarter and they never fulfill their Kickstarter. It happens. So I'm sure people have been burned. The audiences that are there on Kickstarter and who live there and they buy on Kickstarter, they know that stuff happens, that they don't get their Kickstarters fulfilled sometimes. And so the more you can reassure them, the better that they feel. I almost had that word again. Can't think of what it was supposed to be. How long should your intro video be or not be, in your opinion? I do talk about that here in a little bit, so I will answer that when I get there. 3 minutes under, yeah. All right, so I don't see any other questions, but I am going to be answering that question from some of the research done from Kickstarter and other places. All right, let's go on to the next part, which is a 10-minute break. 10-minute break. When was I supposed to hit my 10-minute break? I think I'm a little bit behind time. I think I've talked more than I thought I was going to. At 65 minutes, yeah, I'm like 20 minutes behind. Because I'm trying to keep on time because Dana is going to be coming in at a certain point, and I don't want her to be waiting too long. Y'all need a break? Or are you ready to go on? There's actually, there's not as many people here as there was for the last time. Security. Yes, thank you. That was exactly what I was looking for. A sell point in the video for Kickstarter might be holding a physical proof copy to show some level of guarantee. Yeah, if you have it, right? Because I didn't have mine yet. The reason I didn't have mine yet is because it was still going through my typo buster team when I was setting up my campaign. I wanted to move faster through the process of editing and all that, but I just didn't get there before I went to launch my campaign. And I launched on a very specific day, right? I launched the day before the AuthorTube writing conference. Cool. I'm a run Z barn real quick on break. Okay. I was wondering if I should go to the GNOR, just dip my feet in Kickstarter with the special edition novel. And that might be a good thing to do, right? If you dip your feet in with the special edition novel, I think there's less risk. I honestly think there's less risk with the special edition novel. If you do that, then you start to build your audience there. Then if you turn around and you do an illustrated edition of it, I think that would work good. Because the people who buy the special edition, you're going to have people who, if they love the story, they're going to want every edition you have. So if you say, hey, now there's a graphic novel of it, you're going to have several people right there ready to buy it. You're already going to have a built-in audience with that. I think that's a good plan. I'm good to keep going. I'm a run to Z barn real quick on break. So I think Rachel is running out to the barn, so we'll give it a couple minutes. I am a bit behind. Do I have a way to contact Dana? Oh, there she is. I meant to ask if there's a way I can jump on prior and watch. Let me grab the link. Copy. I'll reply to Dana and tell her I'm late. When did she send that? She sent that 15 minutes ago. Okay, it's not too long ago. I try really hard to stick to my plan. I don't know what I said that made it longer. I think it's because once I'm on screen, I just keep on talking. And then I think of other things that I can add on. And then two, when I ran through this for the final time, y'all, it was like midnight. And it took me 2 hours. So it was like 2 something in the morning when I finished. Yeah. So I think I was trying to go fast too because I was ready to go to sleep. I think I will be less stressed if I do the special first edition things. Yeah, I agree with you, Aphrodite. I think a special first edition would be good. As I would be quaking trying to do a graphic novel because I don't know much about it. I haven't done my research on that. I do know that special editions work really well. They're a really good ticket item to have on Kickstarter. So one I feel very sure of. The other one I couldn't begin to tell you because I know nothing about it. Alrighty. Well, we've waited a couple minutes. Still had a little bit of break, so we're going to go ahead and go on. So you want to do a Kickstarter. 6 steps here that I want to cover. And the first 4 are the most important and will take the most time to prepare for your campaign. So when it gets to the last 2, I'm not going to spend as much time on them, but I will a little bit with these first 4. So the first one is building your author platform, the importance of an author platform and leveraging social media, email lists, and websites, blog. You need to have an author platform. It does so much to kick the algorithm into gear when you go over to Kickstarter and you launch your campaign. And at one point, I think I tried to look at how many people from my email list actually backed my Kickstarter in that first 72 hours, but I was having a hard time figuring out the names because like I saw a name, I was like, this is very close to that name over there, but it's not the same. It's actually closer to the email address, but it's still not the same. And I'm like, I don't know where they came from. And of course, then I did see people from YouTube. And y'all, I think the most people who backed me in the very beginning was my YouTube crowd, like the people you guys, being here. Everybody here is who backed me the most there in the first 72 hours. And it does help, I think, if you have an incentive, which I'm not going to get into. This takes more time to get into that than I have time here. So, but you do want to have an author platform before going to Kickstarter. It has to be something, even if it's just a social media platform. But what if you don't have one? Create a reader magnet, even if it's just a short story. Make sure it is strongly connected to whatever your project is that you are trying to sell on Kickstarter, and start your author newsletter. Get it going. My suggestion is that you start planning your Kickstarter campaign 3 months out. If you can do longer, do longer. But at the minimum, I would say start 3 months out. Okay. 3 months is enough time to start a newsletter and get some newsletter subscribers. And if you've got that reader magnet that is strongly linked to the project that you're trying to sell, whether that's an omnibus or it's a single novel, whatever it is, if it's strongly linked to it, you're going to be attracting the right readers to your newsletter list. And now you have people who can back you. Remember, we looked at that one horror book, right? There was the horror novel with the glow in the dark cover. 15 backers. That's all that person had, was 15 backers, and they met their goal. I don't know what their original goal is. I didn't look at it. It was $837. It's a good guess that the goal was maybe 500, and they met it. So you can have just a few, people who are following you over. All right. You can find an audience on Kickstarter, but you have to have that initial traction and get noticed from Kickstarter. And 2, from other creators. So I talked about how I networked, how I backed some creators before I started my campaign. And then I went and integrated myself with other creators who were going at the time. But within that first week after my Kickstarter launched, remember, I was fully funded within 72 hours. I hit it before 72 hours elapsed. I got the Project We Love sticker. When you get the Project We Love sticker, that's another category people can search by. Because remember I told you had those categories. You have publishing, and then, publishing has the fiction and all those other stuff, right? There's one that's just Project We Love. And there's an audience who look at just the Project We Love campaigns, and they go and check those out. So if you get, how do you get that? You get that from Kickstarter. They don't tell you the measurements. They don't tell you the metrics. What they say is somewhere, I don't remember the exact words, but something along the lines that it has good momentum and it's a professional page. And so having that good momentum, that means getting people to back you right there in the very, very, very beginning. So you get that on there. And so I got that Kickstarter We Love, but that sticker, that Kickstarter We Love, I got that part on there. at the end of that first week, I had creators reaching out to me and say, hey, I would love to do a cross promo with you. So you get that noticed by other creators as well that who are on there. Go back other Kickstarter campaigns in your category. I've talked about that already. So that's building your author platform. Now we're going to move on to storytelling and pitch. This is where your USP is very important, and your why. What's your goal? What is your main core goal? What's your core reason for doing Kickstarter? That leads to your goal, and your why for doing your Kickstarter. You need to know these things. This is part of creating a video to introduce yourself and your project, crafting a compelling Kickstarter story, and designing a captivating campaign page. Let's break this down. Creating your video, introducing you and your project. There was the question about that. Keep it short, 2 to 3 minutes max. You want to hook people's interest right away. Now, I didn't put the figures on screen here, but here's the research that Kickstarter found. 2.5 minutes seems very ideal. Anything that approaches 1 minute is just as bad as anything that goes over 3 minutes. Okay. And on top of that, viewing rates are good if you get a person to watch 30% of your video. So that tells you, so think about it as YouTube. If you publish content on YouTube, or if you're a consumer of YouTube videos, you probably don't watch YouTube videos all the way through, and neither do people watch your videos all the way through. They only watch a certain portion. So anything and everything that's important, you want to put right there at the front, and you want to hook people's interest. And now there's one research article I read that said that funny gets people interested in staying longer on the video. And I'm sure it does. I don't know how you can make something funny out of a fantasy romance, but if I could figure it out, I would probably do it. But funny does that. So in your video, you want to explain who you are as an author. You describe what your project is about in an enthusiastic, engaging way. Explain why you're passionate about it. Have attractive visuals. So that's you and your project. That, this is having stuff that complements it as well. So this could be your actual book. Or this could be visuals, clips of you writing, or images related to the book topic. For me, I use images and video. I didn't use video myself. I use video sort of like a book trailer. I didn't have my book trailer done yet. So I wasn't even sure what I wanted my book trailer to look like. I knew I wanted to do it, though. I didn't want to pay anyone for it. So by doing this, it actually gave me ideas of how I wanted to set up my book trailer. But I kind of put it together, and it kind of looked like a book trailer. Now, especially in fantasy romance and in fantasy, most of these videos were basically the book trailer. So could you just do a book trailer? Sure, you could just do a book trailer. But they don't tend to do the best. Having a person in the video, you, the creator, seems to do the best as far as getting funded. You have a higher success rate of getting funded. So you want to make sure you speak naturally, avoid reading off a script if you can, be personable and connect with your audience. And of course, you want to end with your call to action, make it clear, ask viewers to support you in your campaign, become a backer, share the video. And I don't remember the exact words of how I ended mine, but it was something I saw someone else do. And, I'd say copy. If someone else is doing something and you like it and you think it works, trust your gut, go with it and do something like it. So, you want people like familiarity. So if there's something that's doing well and they see it's doing well, and then they say another campaign that's early and it's very much like the campaign they just backed and it's doing well, that familiarity is going to help them convince them to back you. So I don't remember again what the exact words were or how I changed it, but it was something along the lines of that I couldn't wait to connect with them in some way. And I know those were not the words, but it was basically me saying I couldn't wait to be able to connect with them or get to know them through the campaign. So now Russell Nolte, okay, I guess I had more here before I had Russell Nolte come up. So let me say these: smile, convey optimism and enthusiasm. You want viewers to get excited about your project. So yeah, smile. Don't be shy. Smile. Have someone else watch your video to give feedback. Now, you guys, I still think this. I've watched my video again. It's cheesy as heck. I've done so much better on my YouTube channel than I've ever done in that intro video. It is cheesy. And I can see the moments where I'm like forcing myself to smile because I'm feeling the cheesiness of it. So I did get feedback. I sent it out and I got some feedback and everybody said it was fine. So I used it. But I do remember at that moment, I was thinking not a single campaign in the last year that I saw, was it a year or maybe 6 months, in fantasy romance had a video that had the creator in it. It was just book trailers. That's it. And I remember saying to Andy, he's the sub-pub with Andy, I remember saying to him, I was like, Andy, because he was one that watched my video. I was like, I'm worried because everybody is using a trailer, a book trailer. They're not putting themselves in it. And he brought up something that should have been a dumb moment for me, which is, yeah, but Shannon, they probably don't create content on YouTube. So being in front of camera is probably not natural for them. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. So yeah, so I was different probably in that I put myself in the video versus using just a trailer. Okay, here, Rosto Nolti puts all this simply. The 3 parts to your video should be introduction, product demo, and plea. Introduction, who you are, what you've already published, which I did talk about that. I talked about how I've already published because I use that as part of my my USP of using dragons. Where bringing in that dragons was part of my passion, and that was my USP and everything like that. And my product demo, I didn't have an actual product to demo, but I did the images, the video that all went along with my theme of my book, and I did show a a visual graphic of my book cover at the end of that. And then your plea, them to support you. You don't want to be begging, but yeah. You want to have this introduction video. Do you have to have it? No, you don't have to have it, but you want to have it. You should tell yourself you have to have it. Though, for you who may be here right now, who have done YouTube videos, this is a no-brainer. You're like, yeah, I can do a video. That's no problem. But for those who may be watching who have not done YouTube or videos or anything like that, this may be harder to wrap your mind around doing. Russell Nolte and Monica Leonel, they've written the book on how to get your book selling it on Kickstarter. They've also do a Kickstarter course that I did with them, which is highly expensive. There's lots of other stuff out there you can also consume. But this is what they report. 69% of successful campaigns have a video, where 64% of unsuccessful campaigns do not have a video. So that shows you right there that having a video can add to your success. Another source says that without a Kickstarter video, your campaign will be 85% more likely to fail. And yet another says that projects with, it's covering it up, videos successfully fund at a much higher rate, 50% with videos versus 30%. So here it's not saying whether or not your campaign is successful or not. It's saying at a much higher rate. So you have a higher rate of being funded, successfully funded at a much higher rate with having a video. So I would say get a video, have a video. You want to put that in there. All right, storytelling and pitch, create your video introduction. We talked about that. Now it's craft your compelling Kickstarter story for your project. Now, putting all of this together ahead of time before you get to your Kickstarter and you open your Kickstarter and create an account is going to help you. This is like your sales page on Amazon. Again, all the things that we've already worked on, that we've talked about, your USP, your why, your passion for it, all those things I talked about, you can put that in here. But you do want to start with a hook. Now, if you pay attention to what others are doing in your category, you'll get a good sense of what's working. Same thing if you go on Amazon. Books usually have a hook. That's usually those first 3 lines that you see at the top. When you first look at a book and you're looking at a description, you see the first 3 lines. Sometimes these are statements. Sometimes these are questions. Sometimes it's a mix. Sometimes it's bolded. Sometimes it's italicized. Sometimes it is both italicized and bolded, but it's usually set off in some way that you can see, here is what I'm trying to capture you with. Same idea on Kickstarter. And I started with 3 lines. Now, Russell Nolte and Monica Leonel, they suggest that your 3 lines should all be questions. And the questions need to be better than this. But basically, the question is, do you read fantasy? Yes. Do you read romance fantasy? Yes. Do you like dragons? Yes. So if someone who's reading those 3 questions can say yes to all 3 questions, then they know that they're the right audience for your book. So they should be able to say yes to all 3 questions. But I felt like it was not for me. So, I don't want to put that. I'd rather do it as statements than questions. And I did it as statements, but I didn't do it in the front here. Instead, I did my hook is what I'm going to use my hook on my Amazon sales page. And for those of you who know me, you know that when it comes to names and very specific things, I'm always hiding things in plain sight, sort of. But anyways, these are my initials. It does not have my middle initial, but my full name. These are my initials of my name. And I thought that was really cool. So yes. There's a story for you. All right, here is where, my face is in the way. Here's where I did the 3 lines that if a reader could say yes, then they would, I wonder if I can take me off of here without you guys probably can't hear me, but if they say yes to these lines, then they know that they're the right audience for the book. And so this says, if you like enemies to lovers, Beauty and the Beast vibes and hidden magic, yes. Royal bloodlines, dragons, elemental magic, and shifters, yes. If you like curses that lead to finding love, then you're going to love this story. And there are some things that I put into play with this. Where did it go? Okay, maybe I have to say something else. So there are things that I use very specifically in the way I set that up, and I'm going to talk about that here in a second, that has to do with psychology, that I talked about a little bit when I did the email newsletter class. Okay, so you want to clarify why your backers will want to back your project. So the idea of asking questions to see why if your reader is the right person to read it, right? If the backers are the right person for it, that is the why. Why should they buy it? Well, if it meets all of the things, all the requirements that they like to read, then that's why they should back it, right? So that's what those 3 questions are really about. So I do think that it's important to put that in there. And the 3 things that, research your category. I have research all the time throughout here. So 2 ideas I carry over that I mentioned the author newsletter class. It's not like I carried over from the newsletter class. It's just something that I always keep in mind. That deal with psychology. Number 1 is emojis. You can see I use emojis. So I talked about the emojis. Now this is most specifically to the email newsletter class I gave, in which research shows that having an emoji in your subject line leads to higher open rates. People are attracted to emojis. So I put that in there. And this goes back to a point that I'm really going to stress, which is images. That is important. Images is probably the most important thing when it comes to your page, your sales page, your story page. Of course, you cannot develop your images if you don't get the rest of this right. You want to get the rest of this right first, and then develop your images, and then that's what's important. Okay, so emojis. I like using emojis because I think it captures attention. It is an image. It breaks up text, which goes into the whole F pattern of reading. Now, this is a thing that copywriters are they know this like the back of their hand. F pattern of reading. It's a psychology thing. Okay, when people read, especially if they're just trying to go through and see something like, okay, should I back this? What's this about? Should I read this article? Should I read this blog post? Should I read this book description? They read in an F pattern. What that means is, if you think about the capital letter F, they read the first line all the way through. That's the top of the F, horizontal top of the F, right? The second line, they'll read almost all the way through, but not all of it usually. And then the third line, they read a little bit of it. Now, if you have a fourth and successive line after that in what they're reading, they'll skip over it and they'll go to the next paragraph. So I use that purposefully when I set this up of, if you like, here's the first line, it's longer than the second line. Here's the third line is longer than the second line, or shorter, sorry. So I went shorter so you can see the F pattern that is there. Breaking it up with emojis. So it's cueing the reader's brain to pay attention. You want to read this, okay? Captures the attention. All right, just a little bit of psychology. And I continued this F pattern as I went below. So you guys could see on this previous page, I followed before this, where's it at? So underneath this is where I put my tropes. This is another why of why someone might read your book, is that you put those tropes up there. And I've seen tropes in all across the genres. So this is not just like a fantasy thing. It's not just a romance thing. I think it did come out of romance. But I've seen people do like this trope kind of like thing all throughout the different genres now. I've seen an example on almost every single one of them. So, and having it as a graphic, right? It breaks up the text. So I think that's important. Okay, nope. So here I continue the F pattern reading below the graphic, which I have 3 lines in each paragraph. And you guys I've also noticed, and I don't know if this is in different genres. I have no idea. I know that this is in the fantasy romance genre. I'm actually been reading a sci-fi romance book series. It's got 21 books in it. I'm on book 9 for the last week and a half. And they do this too, where I am noticing that paragraphs are going down to 3 lines in the ebooks. I don't know if it's different in the paperbacks, but in the ebooks, they're going down to 3 lines. And that could be a single sentence. It doesn't even have to be more than 1 sentence. This is not the paragraphs we learned in school. These are not the paragraphs you learned of. So as you notice, 3 lines again, try to make each one successfully shorter. It's not always doable, but you do what you can, right? I probably could have used the F pattern a little bit better on that second paragraph. I could have maybe hit the enter key with the word book or standalone to put more into the 3rd line, but I was okay with how this looked. So I continued that F pattern. Now, one thing that they suggest that you have is your book description. And that's what I have next on here is my book description. Obviously, book descriptions most of the time, I say most of the time because I've been noticing on Amazon, they've been changing to that F pattern reading as well. But most of the time, book descriptions are full paragraphs. And so my book description is a full paragraph. And so I have full paragraphs following this. I've also seen this order different. So like how I showed you, I had my 3 lines to basically say, this is what my book's about. Here is my graphic, right? The graphic was next. The graphic for the tropes. And no, I don't even remember how I did it now, right? No. So underneath that was if you like. So underneath that is if you like it, if you like this, this, and this. Those are the 3 reasons why someone might read your book. And then my tropes. And then there's my book description. Here is one on the left-hand side of the screen. They put their book tropes right up front. And then it's followed by the questions. They actually have 4 questions instead of 3. And then they did a full paragraph there of, why you should get this, the why of why you should get this book. And they kind of use their USP in there to talk about the limited edition Kickstarter campaign, immerse yourself in an incredible world. These are all things that I had pointed out before when you're trying to decide what your USP is. All right. Book description, that's what comes next. This means that you'll want to get your book description done before doing your Kickstarter. Yeah, definitely. You want to get that done. So it's an upfront cost. I think that's important to have your book description in there. Oops. You want to showcase your unique selling proposition. I kind of talked about this already. We talked about why it's unique, innovative, different, and from the existing works in your genre or your category. They're on Kickstarter. Then you want to go, the next part of your storytelling, your story, your sales page, is that you want to have your backer benefits. Like explain what the backers will receive. And I've seen this broken down by tiers. Like people say, okay, for the first tier it's this, for second tier it's this, for third tier it's this. I broke down mine by tiers. Monica Leonel and Russell Nolte. I think it's more Monica Leonel says this, where you should break it out by your different types of tiers. They believe in 3 different types of tiers. I don't subscribe to the same model. They believe in physical or digital, physical, and merch tiers. And I put merch with physical. And I will explain my tiers and how I think of them. But I decided that I want to do mine by the actual levels, the different levels, because my first 4 tiers were all digital. My next 4 tiers were all physical. And then I had a final 9th tier. And that was also physical as well. So it split out. It was basically split between physical and digital and physical, without really bringing a whole lot of attention. Like, here's all the physical or all the digital tiers. And they do that because they will have digital and physical tiers that overlap in price points. My price points didn't overlap. As each tier went to the next tier, the price point went up. And so did the rewards. And it went from digital to physical. There are different ways you can set it up. There's lots of different ways you can do it. But I've seen a lot of people include this. Again, I would say use images, which means you have to know what your tiers are. You have to know what your rewards are. We will get to that in very shortly. You want to put why your Kickstarter. Now, this is something that Russell Nolte, Monica Leonel, they say you should put your why Kickstarter. I've seen tons of people on Kickstarter put why Kickstarter. Like, that's the title of that section. They put why they're using Kickstarter. I think it's a great way to let your audience know why you're there instead of somewhere else. You don't have to do it. I've seen lots that don't have a why Kickstarter, but I do think it's a good way to connect to your audience. And again, this was part of figuring out the goals for your Kickstarter, your why, right? That was part of your main goals and your core reason for being there. AI and transparency. This is something that's becoming more important. When I did my Kickstarter campaign, there was just the rule was you couldn't sell a product that was AI generated. So like your book couldn't be written by AI, your cover couldn't be AI. That was it. That was just a rule. You didn't have to say whether or not it was AI. Now, and I don't know what this looks like because I haven't done one now, but they have now added in as part of the process of setting up your campaign, you have to state what is AI and what's not, or something along those lines. I'm not exactly, again, I don't know how this, I don't know if it's you just say, yes, I have AI, or if you say, yes, I have AI, you need to say what is or what isn't, but it is something that is becoming more important. I did have a backer who contacted me during the campaign and said, hey, where did you get your images? So then I told him where I got my images. All right, so this is becoming more important. So some people have actually started putting a little note in their story about AI, and I'm going to show you one here in a minute. And again, this is required as part of Kickstarter now. And here's that transparency in AI. This is the note I found on a Kickstarter. I think this was taken from that one that Rachel and I were talking about earlier. That's like up to $170,000. And the author, she put, we do not use any language learning models or generative AI in production of our work. All art and design is complete by the artists who are compensated for their creativity and skill. And actually here to the left are stickers, and it has the artist name and it has her name. So she's part of creating those stickers for her book. There at the top, it says interior hard color illustrations by somebody. This is something people have already been doing. They've been putting who is creating some of the artwork on the page, which as someone who's trying to figure out where to get stuff done for my rewards was really helpful, because I was like, oh, you can go there and contact that person. They can do that for you. But not everybody put that on there. And I think it's becoming more and more important to probably say where you're getting stuff. The only one I put anything up there was here. You can see my tropes image where I put cover design by Jacqueline Sweet. I didn't put where my other images came from. So when the person reached out to me, I told them, where I got them from. I have a second book cover. I had hired someone on Fiverr to do it, Olivia Pro Design. I gave him the name. A lot of the other stuff I pulled from the covers, so from the Olivia Pro Design cover, I pulled out a piece of it, and that was part of my my headers and my dividers on my page. And then I have deposit photos, so I used some deposit photos, and I think there was one image in which I combined a deposit photos and an AI generated image, but it was mostly, I think it was just the background that was AI. So the female on it came from deposit photos. And I do that. I like to mishmash things all the time. I constantly, and it doesn't matter if it's AI or not. Like my coloring book, I hired an artist to do my coloring book. I have gone through and I have tweaked probably over half of the pages that he did, because I like to change things the way I think they should be. So, but yes. I've been doing that with Jubalina, is what Rachel says, promoting my artists anywhere I can. Yes, and it helps to promote your artists. It makes them feel good about it as well. I didn't have a lot of artists at the time that I was putting my campaign together, and I should have done it for Olivia Pro Design on Fiverr, but I think it just fled my mind at the time. All the other images I created myself, from pieces of the book covers and or deposit photos, and like that one that I got. None of the stuff that my backers were getting that they were paying for was AI generated. It was the images that were on the site itself. And that was at the time that I created that. It's going to be different for probably a future one that I have in my head. All right. Other things that you can include, and this is not exhaustive. I actually saw a list just yesterday of other things you can include on your story page that you should figure out ahead of time. And that I didn't include it here, and I thought about adding it, and then I just didn't get around to it. But basically, character breakdown. I've seen people do a character breakdown of the characters in the book, author notes, a world building breakdown. I saw that on that sheet, where you can talk about the world building and breaking it down by continents or whatever, the land masses or the populations. Author notes, other works as part of the rewards. Like I included a section about my trilogy, since that was part of my rewards. Shipping times and or rates. I've been seeing this quite a bit, and I think this might be like helpful for especially like everything that's going on right now with shipping all around the world. Shipping is like taking longer, and people are having issues. So putting like expected shipping times and rates is probably good. And most people include this as like a table. It is a graphic. All of these are usually done partly as a graphic, or all the way like the shipping stuff is usually done as a graphic using the theme of their genre or their book. Stretch goals, early backer reward perks, author bio, offer sample chapters. Although I would say that the sample chapters or anything else that you're offering for them to read, the offer of a reader magnet, put that as a link versus actually putting it in there. I think I actually have that as a note in here somewhere. Stretch goals. I would say with your stretch goals, I would caution you about not adding stretch goals until after your first week of running your Kickstarter campaign, because it's something new you can add to your page. It's something new you can reach out to your backers about. Say, hey guys, I added my stretch goals, which is exactly what I did. I added my stretch goals, and here's what they are. Go check it out. And I also sent that to my newsletter subscribers. Plus, it might take some pressure off, because I did come up with stretch goals. I came up with them all the way through, like, I think $7,000, even though in my head I was like, I don't even know if I'm gonna make 1,000, so let alone get that far. But I did make them just in case, because I didn't want to be caught unaware. And when I hit my goal within that first 3 days, then I was like, okay, now I need to put together a graphic, because I had not put together a graphic for my stretch goals, because I honestly didn't think I was going to get there. So then I put together the graphic, and then I put that up there, and I told everybody about it in my newsletter list and all that. All right. Again, research what's happening in your category. See what they're doing. See how they're setting up their pages. I do see some differences between the different genres. And again, I've said category here, but I'm not talking about category just like fiction, between fiction and nonfiction. Research it. Put into the search bar your actual genre, so you can see what's going on in your genre and look at what they're doing, because there are some minute differences. They do things just a bit different. And I would say, what appeals to you? Trust yourself. For instance, one thing that in the course I took with Russell Nolte and Monica Leonel, this was actually one that was done by Russell Nolte, and he was very, very firm about this. Do not use cute names for your tiers. Don't do it. It's a waste of space. It's only going to be confusing. Do not use it. That's what he said, right? And I'm thinking, but I have some cute names for my tiers and I really want them. And so I pulled my audience, and not a single one of them said I shouldn't do it. All of them, I had people say, no, I love the names. I love it. You should do it. And I'm thinking, but this is what I want. This is what I think will add to my USP. This is going to add to my overall feel of what I'm trying to get across in my storytelling, my page, my sales page. And so I did it. And I mean, my campaign was successful. So I can say that I don't think that naming my tiers was something cute was something that withheld or stopped someone from supporting me. So, but he was very, very firm on that. Like he was he's not very firm on a lot of things. He's kind of laid back. If you ever heard Russell Nolte speak, he's kind of a laid back guy. You know, he can get kind of high strung, but he's still kind of high back or low back. What am I trying to say? Laid back, high strung, but, you know, laid back, kind of like, you know, with stuff. He can get excited about stuff and he'll start going really fast, but he doesn't get like that strong voice, like, don't do this, you know. He just gets excited about things. Not that voice, not that voice. That voice was different. And I was like, what? Use emotive language when you are putting your storytelling together, your story page, your sales page. Choose words that carefully evoke the emotions in your readers. You know, paint a picture. I mean, think about how you are able to influence your readers when they're reading your work. What words do you use to give them a certain emotion? And think about that as you're crafting your story. Explain the impact that your project will have, not only on you, but also on your readers. Now, I'm giving you guys all these things that you can put into your Kickstarter story, but you don't have to use all of them. Again, use your best judgment. Go look at other Kickstarter campaigns in your genre. And I did go look to see other campaigns in my genre if they were using cute titles. And I don't think it was not something that was not a norm, but it was something that I knew I wanted to do. So that's why I say trust yourself. If you feel, and I knew it was something I wanted to do, not because I wanted to do it and I thought it would be really cool, but I thought as a reader, the overall experience of seeing that and what those meant would help to add to the legend behind the story. So, and this again can be built into your why Kickstarter section. This, you know, explain the impact your project will have. So you don't have to have like this as a separate section. Narrate the journey. I've actually seen a lot of people do this too. They narrate their journey to get in this project, especially if it's the first book. They'll talk about how long they've been working on the story. And what was one? There was one I read where she said, oh my gosh, I don't even remember what it was, but it was so good. And it was a cozy mystery. So it wasn't even my genre. But she talked about her main character, some of the things that the main character does, she did, and she had imagined doing these other things, and that's what she was able to live that through her character. I thought it was ingenious. It actually gave it like a voice to the character. I could feel that voice when it shifted from the author talking about it into the character talking about her journey. So conclude your Kickstarter story with a clear and compelling call to action. Encourage readers to back your project, share it with others, be a part of its success. I don't think I did this, but it is something you can do. And get feedback. I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. Number 2 here, storytelling pitch, is mainly about the words, okay? But the visuals, I think, are just as important as not important. I've said this already. I think visuals are so important. You have to know your number 2. You have to know what it is you're going to do to be able to create your visuals. But I think those are the most important things that's part of your Kickstarter campaign. At this point, the only visual you might have, though, is your book cover. So, you know, and this is important to have, of course. All right, we're on any questions. Let me see if I can go back a little bit. Cheese is delicious. I think that was a response to me saying that my intro video is cheesy. I need to learn how to do the squiggly line on the poster thing. Squiggly line on the poster thing. Oh. If I think I know what you're talking about, yeah, it's pretty easy. Yeah. Emotional damage. Emotional damage. These are not the lines you're looking for. Yeah, I know. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, these are not the lines you're looking for. This is not the paragraph, you know. That makes sense to me. Build the price of the tiers as they go, at least to me. Yeah, it makes sense to me too. But I think where these crossovers can come into play is when you have a big backlist. So I've already thought about this for my next book. Okay. So my first book, I was like, hey, get the ebook or get the novella. Now get the ebook. Now get the map that goes with the ebook. Now get the paperback. Now get the hardback. When I do my next book in my series and I'm doing a campaign on it again, I'm not going to say the first level is get the prequel novella again. I mean, I could, but those people who already backed me at that level, the first time around, they're not going to back me again at that level because they've already got it. So now I'm going to have a levels hanging out here that not everybody's going to get. But what if I want to offer them something at that level? Then I might maybe offer something else. I don't know. I haven't quite figured out. I think I'm going to go very simple on my next campaign, to be entirely honest. I'm going to be really simple. But for instance, like on my Kickstarter campaign that I did, you know, at a certain point, I think it was the 3rd level, they got Blood of the Lily, the ebook. At the 4th level, which was the last level that was digital, they got the trilogy. Now the 5th all the way up to the 9th level was print, but everybody got all the digital stuff. So everybody has the trilogy. So any of those who read the first book and they like it and they want to buy the second book, I'm going to offer the trilogy again. but they're not going to want it. So maybe I offer the trilogy at the, what was it? That was at the $25 level. So I might have a $25 level with the trilogy for those who weren't part of the first Kickstarter. But I might maybe have another $25 level that has something else, or maybe it's a $20 level or a $15 level. I don't know. I have to figure it out, because now at this point, I'm going to have an audience who's going to move with me, and they're already going to have gotten the things from my backlist for my first campaign. So I can see where that might come into play eventually. But to start with, yeah, building the tiers up made a lot of sense to me for my first one. I like naming my tiers. Thinks it fits my story well. See, I felt the same way. We demand the cute names. Oh, is this part 2? I'm dropping a like. Thank you. Yeah, I'm probably in the second part. I'm trying to hurry up because I'm supposed to be bringing on Dana here soon. She's probably waiting on me. All right, I'm looking for questions. Here we go. If you're doing a special edition, do you give the original as a low tier reward? I would offer it because it is a product that you have. I would build your page around that special edition. But here's what I would say. I would offer the original digital only. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit when I get into some of the costs here, because print tiers, you get less profit from, and you don't make as much money. And if you have too many print tiers, you can eat into your costs and then end up paying people to have backed your Kickstarter, even though you might be successful. So I would offer probably the original as a digital only. The only way I might do print is if there was, like, say it's a special edition, or you're doing a special edition of, like, the first book, but you have 3 books in the series, then there might be a tier where I offer all 3 hardback covers in the series, and that would be a high price, so that I can make sure that I'm not going to go in debt. I repent, watch later. Reward tiers, you're allowed to up to 10, but keep it between 3 to 5 to avoid choice overload. Yeah, and I did wonder if I had choice overload because I had 9. And I wonder if I could have raised more money if I didn't have choice overload, for sure. Yeah. Dana's here. Hello. I'm so sorry, Dana. I'm a bit behind. I end up talking a whole lot more than what I've actually done. Decision paralysis. Yeah. Yep. Worst time finding one of those fancy smashy bookmakers, the one that do the colored edges. And guess what? Dana is going to be able to show you when I bring her on here very soon. She's going to be able to show you where you can get that stuff from. And she is a direct one-on-one words escaping me today. The direct one-on-one person you'll work with to get those things. So she's going to be your direct connection. There's the word I was looking for. Take your time. I do them. Yes, she does. All righty. Let me go on to this next part. All right. Now you have an idea of what your story will be. Now it's time to figure out what your rewards could be. This will also help you with developing your images, and that will accompany your story. Also, you need an idea of what your rewards and tiers will be to determine the cost of creating, producing, and shipping those rewards. These are all very important in figuring out your budget. Now, I know when I originally put this together, I put budget first, and I thought budget's hard to do if you don't know what you're actually doing for your rewards and your tiers, or what you could possibly do. And I say possibly because I wrote down a bunch of rewards that I could do. That was my methods. I wrote down a whole bunch. I did a lot of research. I wrote down a lot of rewards I could do. And then I went out and I tried to find if I could see where I could find them to be able to fulfill it and what the cost would be. And that's when I found a lot of things I really liked. I didn't know where to get it from. And I did not know Adana before then. I know Adana now. So for my next Kickstarter, I'm going to have a lot of these things I really wanted on my first Kickstarter campaign. All right. When it comes to deciding on your rewards and tiers, you want to design attractive backer rewards at various price points, and you want to create enticing reward tiers. So start with that first one. These are, again, I'm breaking this down into the way I break them down, which, again, if you've read the book by Russell Nolte and Malcolm Leonel, they break it down by digital, print, and merch. Mine's a little bit different. I include digital, which is, these are the e-files. Is anything an e-file that you're giving them? This is your ebook. This is any PDFs of, like, a map or of artwork, or this could be MP3 files if you have, like, a soundtrack that goes with it. Or, like, for me, I have my commentary on my book that I'm giving to one of my backers that was part of the tier that he backed. So this is anything that is e format in some way, whether that's .pdf, .epub, .emobi, .mp3, .mp4, because I also had a book trailer or a book, the moving book trailer, if there's a name for that. So yes, so anything that is an e-file. Then you have your physical, which is your paperbacks, hardcovers, print files, like your artwork, your posters, anything that you're printing, merch, pins, stickers, totes, whatever it is. The reason why I split these out, I do it because of costs. Okay. With an e-file, you are probably paying to get it created in some way. Unless, like for me, I'm doing my commentary on my book, and that's not costing me anything, just my time. But like, I have the ebook and the PDFs of my artwork. I paid for the artwork. I, paid an artist to make my artwork. I paid an artist to make my map. So I had to pay for that. So there was the cost associated with creating the e-file in most cases. And, and there's also a cost that could be associated with delivering those e-files if you use like BookFunnel to deliver, or if you're using a manager of some type on the back end. I'll briefly touch on that here in a little bit. So those are the costs associated with e-files. So then physical, the reason why I put like merch with physical is because all of these have associated costs that are very similar. You have the production of it, right? So you have to produce the paperback, then you have to ship it. Same thing with merch. You have to produce the pins or the stickers, and then you have to ship it. And that shipping can be 2 different shipping. So if you're doing, like I have some signed editions of my hardcover, I'm paying for the hardcover to be made and shipped to me. So it's production costs right there, shipping costs to me, and then I have to sign it, and then shipping costs to my backer. So there's 3 different shipping costs there. And the same thing with most merch, you're usually shipping it to you after it's produced. You pay for production, you pay for shipping to you pay for shipping to your backer. So these are very similar costs. That's why I put these together. I do have a third category, and these are like thank you videos and tuckerization, among other things. Thank you videos. This is like if you're doing like an Instagram reel or TikTok or on YouTube, and you're just putting together a video. You're not giving the file to your backers, but you might give them a link to see the thank you video. And I have to do one of those, by the way. Tuckerization. That's when a backer gets to name a character after themselves. I'm not really on the whole tuckerization thing, but I did something similar, which was that at my highest tier, which I had someone buy at the highest tier, they got to develop a character and name a character with me. And I really like this much better. I already met with him once, video call, and we, developed this character, and we've been communicating through email to add more to this character backstory. And the character is actually going to appear in the second book. And I'm actually really excited about it because I really love his idea. So, yes. Yeah. And so these are different. I think of these as other because they don't necessarily cost anything in production. They don't necessarily cost anything in delivering. It's more about your time, or a concession, like, allowing someone to name a character in your book. That is a concession that you have to decide if you can make that concession. I don't think I could allow anyone to name a character in my book after themselves because of the fact that I write fantasy and I write epic fantasy. So my names are those who know me, my names always mean something. There's always a reason behind my names, which he was very much on board with the idea. And when we developed the character, and we developed the magic that the character would be using, he left with those. And because I told him how I named my other characters based off of their magic, their culture, their season that they fell into, because my magic is based on seasons. He took all that, and then he got back with me. He's like, here's some names I came up with, and here's what they mean, because my names always mean something. And I told him I was looking for names that were for the season that he chose. I said, this season is based off of Latin and Norse names. And sometimes, I don't mind mixing those two, the roots up on those. And that's what he did. He mixed the roots up and came up with different names. Really, really cool. I got an awesome person to work with. Hopefully, if you ever do something like that, you get an awesome person to work with. All right, so part of your backer rewards could be your backlist. If you have a backlist, genre does not matter. So my genre for my backlist is YA fantasy. There's like some romance, but there's not a happily ever after for every single character who has a romance. So it does not go with my fantasy romance at all, but it doesn't matter. Include your backlist. Include items that are not easily found on Amazon or your website. I kind of talked about this quite a bit in the beginning. Kickstarter is all about offering something that is limited to Kickstarter. You want to offer them something they can't get anywhere else. And there are people on Kickstarter who are looking for that specifically. Price items to cover your costs, but also adds value to your backers. So you don't want to price an item that if the backer got it somewhere else, they could get it cheaper. But that price should still cover the costs of what it takes to produce and ship that item, depending on if it has to be produced and shipped, depending on what the item is. So that is a very hard balance. And it took me a really long time to figure out my rewards and my tiers because of trying to figure out that balance. I'm going to show you a little bit more with that here in a moment. It's not moving on to another slide. I think it stopped. It stopped at 200 slides. That is really weird. and I have more slides. All right, short break as I get my PowerPoint presentation pulled up here because it is not. I don't know why it stopped at 200 slides because I had more. Maybe it just automatically stops at 200 slides. Give me just a second, guys. I have 290 slides. See, we're almost done. Because of some of this other parts, just questions and stuff. If you guys want, do you have any questions? We can do a question period now. That way, in the next question period, we will stop. And we won't stop, I mean, and then we'll go on. I did not realize it stopped at 200 slides. That is interesting. So now you guys know, for anybody who ever shares a PowerPoint through StreamYard, it only goes up to the 200 slide mark. I am now adding the slides in. It will take a second to add it. It has to generate it, I guess, or whatever it does. Let's see if you guys have any questions. Two-thirds of the way through, almost done. LOL, Shannon. It is. You weren't here at the beginning. The last 2 points of this section I'm on, I'm going to go through really quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I feel that the most time is really spent on the first 4 points of this section. So I'm going to kind of fly through those. Another thing is I remember is having a backer's name in the dedications acknowledgments without needing to have anything else attached to the reward. Yeah, I have that too. I actually kind of put that as part of my thank yous with my video as well. Just had thanks, Rachel. Just had to look up decoration. All right, it did it. Here we go. Adding to the stage. Were there any questions? Haha, I know a Dana now. Love it. Yeah. All right. Prices. This was the 200 slide, so we did this one. We'll go to the next one. So if you sell your book for your ebook for $5.99, then maybe you price it for $5 for your Kickstarter. So you have to have an idea of what you're going to plan to sell your book for, whether that is on a retailer platform or a subscription model, whatever it is that you plan to sell it for later. You want to make sure that your Kickstarter backers feel like they're getting something for buying it first, right? They like to know that they're getting it at a better deal or they're getting something special that nobody else can get later. And as you decide on your rewards, figure out costs. I kind of said that already. You want to figure out how much it's going to cost to produce and sell it. Okay. And if that might include shipping, you want to include all that. And so that's what I did for figuring out my rewards. So I wrote down, like I said, I did lots and lots of research. I spent many months researching. I looked at all the ones in my genre, went back 2 years, looked at other genres. I even looked at other Kickstarter campaigns that were not under publishing just to see if there was anything that they were doing that could carry over into publishing. And I wrote down all the rewards that made sense to me. And once I had my list written down, then I went and started researching to find, can I get this done? Can I get it made? And there was a lot of stuff I could not figure out where to go get it. And I also went back to Kickstarter campaigns and I looked at like if people put the names of their designers or where they got it from. I went and contacted some of those designers as well. So, and sometimes you need a little bit of time because there's one designer I contacted that she had no time to do anything for me before my first Kickstarter, but she just did finish the first sheet for me that I want. I'm doing vellum sheets. She just finished the first one. Actually, I just bought it yesterday from her. Like I finished paying her for it. And then she's working on my second one in November. So I'll have those 2 ready for my next Kickstarter campaign. So you want to figure out what are your price points. And I would say try to figure out, several different price points because you don't know if prices will change or if you might get a coupon or whatever. So figure out different price points. You want to figure all this out and then try to start putting your tiers together based off of your rewards. You do want to be aware of prohibited rewards like alcohol, weapons, pornography. There's a list, and it's not hard to find on Kickstarter. So there are certain things you cannot sell. So you want to be aware that there's certain rewards you cannot offer. All right, so the next part is, so continuing there. Yeah, this is important. Have various levels starting with a simple reward level of $1. I would highly suggest that you do this. Have that $1 level, and that could be as simple as back it because you believe in it. Now, I felt like I needed to offer something at that $1 level. That's what I felt. And so I offered my novella, which at the time that my Kickstarter happened, it was only 12,000 words, and I didn't really like it. And so I have since then revamped it, and I've gotten out to my Kickstarter backers. It's now 27,000 words. So, and I plan on putting it on retailer platforms for $2.99. So at this point, I think this might be the last time that it's going to be $1. It is on Indiegogo if anyone wants to grab it. And my Kickstarter campaign is linked down below. If you go to there, you click on miss out, get it here or whatever the button says. If you click that, it takes you to Indiegogo. You can get it for $1 because I think on my next campaign, I'm going to do the $1 back it because you believe in it. And a $2 level will be the novella is what I think I'm going to do. So anyways, I'm thinking that may change. Kickstarter recommends the 5 tier levels. I think Rachel kind of brought that up earlier, how 3 to 5 tiers helps with the indecision overload. And a good baseline is $1, $10, $25, $50, and $2.50. This is just a baseline. You don't have to go buy this. I didn't go buy this. And I like to call this, I thought maybe I got this somewhere, but I can't find anywhere that I got this word from. So I'm just going to claim it, which is God tier. You want that God tier. People are like, why should I do $250? Who's going to back me at $250? Especially, if you don't have a big audience and it's your first book, you may feel like, no one's going to back me for $250. This is outrageous. No, you need your God tier. Get your God tier in there because someone's going to do it. And guess what? I had someone who backed me at my God tier. So mine was actually called the Chaos Lore, but I think of it as the God tier. And the most popular pledge on Kickstarter, wait, I wrote this down, was $25, right? This is from Kickstarter's own page, that their most popular Kickstarter pledge level is $25. It was not mine. I actually went and looked at mine, broke it down. My most popular pledge level was $1. Now, I had 2 different dollar levels. One was the short-term 72 hours, back it up at this $1 level, you get the dragon sticker, and then you can add on stuff. And then my other one was get the novella, and you can add on stuff. Well, people added on stuff because I had 42 people back me at the $1 level, and that was my highest. Well, that would mean $42. And no, I raised $998 at the $1 level. And that roughly came out, if you did an average, that comes out to $23.76, which is close to that $25 level. And that's because people did a lot of add-ons. My $25 level was not my highest. My next highest was $10. And then my next highest was $35, which that was my first print level. And then my $25 was my last digital level. And maybe that made a difference. I don't know. But then that was the next one and that actually tied with my $55 level. So that was not the most popular one for me, but I found that interesting. All right, you do want to possibly build off your previous tiers. We just did spend a little bit of time talking about this. I think it is a good model. But again, if you have some backlists that you've already offered in previous Kickstarters and you have an audience who's following you, some of those tiers won't make sense for them. And so you do want to maybe offer them something at different tier levels, at different price points that they're willing to back you on. So you don't run into a situation like we talked about with Annette, Marie Annette's, or the one that's 170,000 right now, where I would back her if she had a lower tier level, but she doesn't have a lower tier level. It's $135 to get the book. And I'm not going to do that. If it was lower, I would do it. But you want to think about offering something at various price points that makes sense for whatever level your backers may be at. I recommend making your lower tiers digital only tiers. And then there's 2 rules. So this is the important part to take away. 2 rules when it comes to your tiers. Provide double value. Okay. This is really easy to do when you're looking at physical products, because you know that when you price your print book, for example, it may cost like $7 to print it, and it's going to cost, $4 to ship it. So now it's $11. Well, and you want to make some money off of it, but it's essentially $11. Maybe you would put it up on Amazon at $16.99. Well, then you want to make sure that if you provide it in a tier, that is a higher tier, that you're providing double value. So, and this gets harder with digital because you have to figure out what your digital is worth, and that's really hard to do. So I have an example here of mine. This is from a spreadsheet that I didn't create this spreadsheet. It was done through the class that I went through. So you can see here at the $10 level, this is my second reward level tier. $10 was the digital version of the book. It had the digital map. It had the digital bookmark, which was animated, is the word I was looking for earlier. And the bookmark. It also had the digital prequel novella. So if you see here, I put the price of what everything was. A digital novella, I priced it at $2. Now I would price it at $3, but so you can see the value to the backer came to $26, but I was charging them $10. So I doubled the value. And so you want to double the value as much as you can. Again, that's hard to do when it's digital because you're like, well, how much is my digital bookmark worth? I mean, you think about how much you paid for the artwork. I mean, I paid for someone to do the digital bookmark. I paid someone to create the cover artwork for the bookmark. And then I paid someone to create the digital they're animated, sorry, the animated portion of the bookmark. And I was like, how much would that be worth? How much is that worth to me? So you have to figure that out. And what would you sell it for if you weren't selling it on here? The second thing is you want to ensure that you have a 30 to 50% or plus, or 50% or more profit on your tiers. And this is where people want to use their digital tiers, because in digital tiers, you make more profit, right? You can have a higher profit margin. You want to have an average of around 50% though. If you see here, this is the one I just showed you. That's how much, value to the backer. And it was an 87% margin, because the cost of actually delivering it to my backers was little. Now, you could say your costs are more. Maybe you say, my book was worth this much money to write. This is how much I'm paying myself. But then that can get really hard. And that's why it's hard to do digital stuff, because even though I paid a certain amount of money for my bookmark to be made, for my animation to be made, it was a set amount. But then I'm divvying that out between different people, right? Different people are buying that. I don't know how many people were going to buy it. I don't know how many people were going to buy that for. So what is that worth? So that could be hard to do. So, but digital tiers, you make a higher profit versus like here, this is my 5th tier. This is my first print tier. Again, I made sure that it was a double value, at least double value. It was $35 was a cost to my backer. And I put it, it was $81 for the actual value that was going to the backer. And then this dropped the margin down to 44%, because this is taking into production costs and shipping costs and those kinds of things. And this was the only thing that was being produced and shipped was the print paperback here. And so there was nothing else in this one. Now, the next tier up, I had like a bookmark and I had character artwork and stuff. And as you went up, there's more print stuff. The more print stuff you have, the more it eats into your profit margin. So you want to try to balance it out between your digital and your print tiers, where your print margin or your profit margin is going to be an average of around 50%. If you can get higher, that's great. But then at the same time, you want to make sure that you're still delivering that value to the backer. And that's the balance, delivering value to your backer while you're still keeping your profit margin high. And this is what you see here was not the first time I did this. This was like my 5th iteration of trying to figure out how to deliver value while making good profits and what worked. I redid this and redid this and redid this over and over and over again. My average profit margin on this was 53%. All right, so that was deciding on rewards and tiers, determine your budget and set your funding goal. You need to know what your rewards and your tiers are going to be. Once you set all that up, then you can kind of decide and look at what your goal should be from there. Your funding goal cannot be determined without figuring out your budget. And your funding goal, if you remember from the very beginning, that's the amount that you're saying, hey, this is what I would like to hit as my figure. Mine was $1,000. It can be any number in there that you choose that you cannot change when your campaign launches. So from this should be determined after you figure out your budget. You want to make sure that you can pay for everything. And I don't have maybe Dana might have, I don't know if she's got a cheat sheet for this, but what I figured out was how I did it was if someone bought one of every tier, where would I be sitting with my money? Would I be making money? Would I be losing money? How much money would I be making if I am making money? And that was part of what I did to look at my overall budget and where I needed to, to continue to manipulate my tiers where I'm still delivering value and making good profit margins. I think that if you keep your profit margins at an average of 50%, you're going to be fine with this. You want to consider these areas: the creation costs, editing, formatting, cover design, character artwork, your coloring book artist, all these things that goes into creating the works that you are providing. Production costs, your printing, get several quotes, talked about this already. Shipping costs, local and international shipping. There are some people who do not do international shipping because international shipping is high. And I think at one point it was almost part of it that, the creator would pay for international shipping costs. But now what I see happening more often is that the international shipping costs are passed on to the backer. So they still provide it. They say, hey, here's an option. If you're willing to pay for it, you will pay for it. But if you're not, then you won't. But they're still giving the option versus not having the option there at all. But I still see creators who just don't give the option at all. And they will put into their story that they're not offering it overseas or international from them because of the cost associated with trying to get it to them. You do have drop shipping, which means that, Ingram Spark has a distribution center almost all over the world. You can order your book at the distribution center and have it sent from there to the person in Australia or wherever, in the UK or wherever it is that you're at. But even these prices can still get pretty high depending on where you're shipping to. So And one thing I want to point out here, also don't forget, as part of your shipping costs, any shipping materials. For instance, I had the dragon sticker that was part of the first 72 hours. Anyone who backed it gets a dragon sticker, even overseas. So I have to get, I had to get the envelopes. The envelopes cost money. I had to get the stamps. The overseas stamps were a different cost. So you want to make sure you put all that in there. And any fees from fulfillment companies, those are companies who are working with you to fulfill your Kickstarter for you. And I do have a couple I'm going to bring up here in a moment. Marketing costs, advertising, live events, print materials. I only paid $25 on advertising. It was to a company who got my my Kickstarter out to some bloggers and some people who were known to really be part of the Kickstarter audience campaigns, like or audience backers. Like they like to back Kickstarter. And so they did that. It cost me $25. I don't know if I actually made my money back because it gave me a list of people who opened the campaign that they sent out, and it wasn't very many people. And then I don't think I ever connected any of the names to anybody who backed me, but I didn't put a lot of time into it at that point, and I still haven't been able to go back to it and put time into it, but I don't know if it was worth it. But there are people who spend lots of money on advertising. They go to live events and they print materials to go to these live events with or to pass out in their area. I don't think it's something you have to do, but it could definitely help, especially if you're worried about meeting your funding goal. And then your admin costs, your platform fees, we talked about with Kickstarter, credit card fees, crowdfunding marketing firm fees. This is kind of like what I was talking about, those companies that work with you to fulfill. The two that I see the most of, there are other ones. You have BackerKit and Pledge Manager. Russell Nolte and Michael Leonel, they suggest using BackerKit. They stand by it, say it's the best one out there. I didn't use either. A lot of the suggestions about using these kinds of companies is that it's best when you have over 100 backers. I had over 100 backers, but I thought, I don't know, because you pay them a fee. You pay them to fulfill for you. Now, the argument is that they do other things that you can't do through Kickstarter. For instance, like BackerKit and Pledge Manager, like when they send the survey out to the backers right after everything concludes and you're successful, right? They send the survey out, they upsell the stuff that you have. So if they didn't choose this add-on, they might upsell an add-on to try to get them. And Russell has said there's so many times that he's made back the money he's paid to BackerKit because of the upsells. So I think there's probably some merit in this, but I would say the other reason why I did not use them is because I think it's important, especially for indie authors, it's important for us to know, how does this stuff work? Because if you hire a company to do this for you and they're doing it wrong or they're being shady, how do you know they're doing it wrong or they're being shady if you don't know how it works? So I knew that for my first campaign, I wanted to see how it worked. I wanted to see the back end of it so that I know what works and what doesn't. So that's my personal thought. All right, your budget must consist of these areas. Oh, contingency fund. Cover unexpected expenses or overages. Advisable to allocate around 10% of your total budget. I almost thought I was going to have to allocate a contingency fund here because when I was having all these issues with my file with Ingram Spark, I started considering Book Vault, but I couldn't get my formatting files. Not a single size would work with Book Vault. But I thought I was going to go over to Book Vault to fulfill the rest of my campaign, and they're more expensive than Ingram Spark. So I thought, okay, well, there goes some of my overhead expense or overhead profit, or whatever you call it, the profit margin I had, not the overhead. So you definitely want to take into consideration that there might be something that would come up that you're going to have to spend money on. And then, of course, your time. You want to pay yourself for your time. I didn't pay myself for my time, guys. I didn't pay myself for my time. I'm happy to get a book out there, and if people like it and they're reading it, eventually I know I'll make money. That's the way I feel about it. I don't have a huge backlist. My first series is not very marketable. I am a realist with my stuff, and I do think that this is a better series for me. And so I will pay myself when I actually start breaking even. And then there's other things you might want to consider. Taxes. If whatever money you make in a given year off of a Kickstarter, if you do not spend that money that year, you have to pay taxes on it. You might want to consider doing an LLC or corporation. I already have an LLC, so it's not something new I have to do. You might want to consult an attorney and or an accountant, depending on how much money you're bringing in. If you're bringing in, $20,000, $30,000, this might be something you want to look into. So it's other things that you might spend money on. All right. So that was the end of those are the first 4 things I think you'll spend the most of your time on. The next 2, I'm going to go through really quickly because they're important and they're part of, preparing yourself for your campaign. But I think you really have to spend your time. And I would say I spent 6 weeks. I should have spent 3 months or more on my putting my campaign together. And I spent some months researching before that, but I should have spent 3 months, which is the average that they say you should do. 3 months putting your campaign together. I should have done that. Instead, I spent 6 weeks putting my campaign together. And of those 6 weeks, 5 weeks just spent on these 4 things. The next 2 things took me a week to get done. So once you have your story in place, once you know how you're going to, you've got your author platform, you've got your story in place, you know what your tiers are going to be, your rewards, you put your budget together. Now you can, I'm going to skip over this because of the break that we did have there with the slides. But now you want to make up your project page visually appealing. This is putting it all together, putting your sales page together. I've talked about how images are really important with this. You want to use strong visual elements, capture attention. This is going to keep backers on your page longer than having huge blocks of text or only having text. Again, I've talked about this several times. Images are important. I think they are the most important part of your Kickstarter campaign, but you cannot do it if you don't know what your story is, if you don't know what your theme is, if you don't know what your book's all about, if you do not have your book cover. You need to have all those things in place, which is all part of those first 4 things that we talked about. So move on to the next thing here, thumbnail for your cover. So there is a big picture that is at the top when you go to a campaign page. If this is a video, this is your introduction video, then this is your thumbnail for your video. If you don't have a video, then it's just a big picture. And you want to have an eye-catching picture here. A lot of people, sorry, it popped when Dana came in backstage. I heard it pop. No, you're fine, Dana. No, you're fine. Don't leave. It just popped and I got scared. So a lot of people like to put their book cover on there. I think that's a great idea. One thing that Russell Nolte said that I think is really interesting, I never heard of before or thought about before, but I think it does probably is a something that I think you should take into account is having a person who's looking at you. So he went back and he's done a lot of campaigns, guys. He's done campaigns every few months for the last few years. So he's done lots of campaigns, and he went back and he looked at how well those campaigns did compared to having someone in that image who was looking at the viewer versus not having someone looking at the viewer, or having someone who's there but looking away from the viewer. So I thought, this is kind of true. And I was like, good thing my book cover has someone looking at the viewer, because I'll just go ahead and use that. Now, something I have seen, again, I would say, trust your gut. Look at what people are doing in your category. Trust your gut and see what people are doing that catches your attention. And something I've seen people doing recently is that they're laying out the whole, like the hardback cover, the whole flap, the whole, the paper, the wrap to the hardback cover, and the ones that have like all the special stenciling on it, the gold foils, and it's really pretty. And they are like laying that out, and they're showing a very good visual representation. And those catch my eye. But then I have to ask myself, is it catching my eye because of a reader perspective, or is it catching my eye because I was like, ooh, I'd like to have that as a Kickstarter creator? Gotta try and be honest with yourself on this one. Use bold, legible fonts, make text easy to read, avoid cluttered and fancy fonts. I think, this is something we think about even when we're trying to put together our book cover, or think about what book covers work and with fonts. Break up your sections with images, videos, graphics, dividers. Again, this goes back to those images. You want to have stuff break up the text. I didn't have a lot of videos in mind, but I have seen people add videos. I've seen people add GIFs. So, those are the short little clips that, go over and over again, the GIFs that go, that are short little videos, right? Those work. Anything that's going to break it up and it adds visual interest and keeps them on the platform. This is also part of your dividers, your logos, your banners that have stylistic images. Make sure they reinforce your book's genre. Like I said, I use mine. I took them directly from my book cover, the one that I had designed by Olivia Pro Design, because there was this scroll work, and I thought it was really pretty. It was kind of fantasy feeling to me and romantic at the same time. So to me, it fit, and that's what I used for my dividers. Use white space between sections to avoid, having it too text heavy. This goes back to me talking about having that F reader pattern, right? So you want to break up your text. You don't want to have huge blocks of text, because, that does turn people off when they're trying to read it. And especially if they're just skimming the page, they're going to skip right by that. Ensure good contrast between text and background colors for readability. Now, there's a background color that's already there. You can change it with like images and stuff like that. So you want to make sure that if you create your graphics with different colors, that there's good readability. Embed excerpts. I talked about this already. Instead of like putting like actual, like your first chapter into your story, do it as a link for them to go to there to read it, instead of the long text and paragraphs. Add graphics related to the book theme, like character illustration settings. So this is kind of like things that you may be offering as part of your rewards and or your stretch goals. And then show off any rewards like stickers, shirts, and mock-ups. Include graphics for stretch goals and funding milestones to convey momentum. And again, like I said, I recommend doing this after you've already started your Kickstarter campaign. Don't put that in the beginning because it's a good point to talk about with your Kickstarter backers and with your email lists and your audiences. Add icons to call out perks of higher reward tiers. You can also say this is like emojis. Ask a few friends to review the page. You can have people come in and review your page ahead of time, look at the page design, identify improvements, and anything that may make it better. The next thing is develop a marketing plan and spread the word. You want to do this ahead of time. Basically, this is all about figuring out where you're going to get the word out through your social media channels, if you've got them, through your email list. Plan it out ahead of time. I did this. I created several graphics ahead of time, but I ran out quickly because I didn't do enough. And then I got really busy with the authortube writing conference. So I ran out, but I did plan this ahead. And tip, explain what a Kickstarter is and why you're using it. And I kind of talked about this earlier, but if you're talking to audiences, especially if it's your newsletter subscribers, they may not know what a Kickstarter is. So explain what it is. Tell them why you're using it. Connect with them. Again, create all those graphics ahead of time leading up to your launch. And then you want to have stuff that happens after your launch, but you want to do stuff that leads up to it. There is like a whole set of emails you should probably create as your pre-launch plan to send to your newsletter subscribers that break down like what's a Kickstarter, why are you doing it? I was actually a little bit scared to share that I was doing a Kickstarter because I thought I was going to like jinx myself and it was going to go really bad. So I still talked about my project, but I talked about my book. In my newsletters, I always talked about my story, where I was at, the characters I was creating, the names I was giving them, and why. I even pulled them to see what other kinds of shifters I could put into my story. So I included them as part of the process of my book. So by the time I got to talking about the Kickstarter, even though I did it kind of late, I would suggest that you do it early, probably like a month out at least. But since I did it kind of late, I had already prepped and warned my audience to the idea of my book. So that is definitely a way you can do that. Pre-launch emails for your newsletter, kind of covered that already. Reach out to relevant bloggers. I didn't have time for this. I really wanted to do this, but you can reach out to bloggers, influencers, people here on YouTube, those of us who live here on YouTube with our social media. Reach out to them, people who like to read your book, and see if they will read it and share it. And I did reach out to people in the authortube community to go sprint on their channels during NaNoWriMo, because it was NaNoWriMo, right? Camp NaNoWriMo in July. And I sprinted on their channels and I was able to talk about my campaign. So I did do that. I also reached out to people in the group I'm part of that is part of the YouTube mastermind group to say, hey, can you bring me on your channel to talk about Kickstarters? And this was all, I did all of this during the time that my Kickstarter was going. So I went on all these different channels. I talked about my Kickstarter. And that was another way for me to get the word out there. You can use paid ads. I had plans to do this. I actually had a Facebook ad that I paid for to get designed, and I never got a chance to do it because I knew it was going to take time to figure out just how I even get a Facebook ad going, like figuring out how to fill it all out. So, and I didn't get there. I ran out of time. Of course, there's other types of ads that you can run. You can't run them on Amazon because that's just Amazon books, but you have Facebook, Instagram. I don't know how you do it on Goodreads. I'm not sure how you do that one, but I guess some people do it. Organize real world events like a book launch. I did a book launch for my debut. That was excruciating experience. I'm never going to do it again. So that probably wouldn't happen for me, but you can put together a real world book launch. Schedule interviews on podcasts, radio shows, and these you kind of want to do ahead of time because podcasts sometimes they will record several months out. So if you know you're doing a Kickstarter and you want it to come out at the same time as you're doing your Kickstarter, you're going to want to plan ahead. Leverage your network by asking colleagues, friends, and family to share regularly. I kind of leverage my network to come on people's channels. So that's kind of like what I did. And well, my husband, he talks about my writing all the time at his job. So I don't really have to leverage him for that. He just does it. If you networked on Kickstarter, then set up cross promotions. Remember I talked about backing some of those Kickstarters. Attend book fairs, conferences, and other author events. And where you can mention your campaign. All right, so those are the 6 parts of preparing for your campaign. Like I said, I went through those last 2 really quickly because a lot of that I did in like the last week before my Kickstarter launched. The rest of it took a lot of time. I think you kind of need to know what you're doing with those first 4 steps to know, to be able to get a good plan in place. All right, tips. Give yourself plenty of time, 3 months to plan everything. I've kind of talked about that. I've hit it on home on that one so many times. Hire someone to develop your images if this is not part of your skill set. You guys know I like doing images. I'm, my thing. I love doing images. One company that's recently come on board with doing actual images as specifically for Kickstarter's BookBrush, so you can check them out. Share your preview page with current audience to generate interest and personal investment. So what's a preview page? This is a shareable page that shows your full project as it will appear once it's live. Okay, so it looks like it's live, but it's not. And it includes your title, video, description. So it has all the stuff that you put in there. You're still able to change it at this point. But when you share your preview page, you know, this, you could do this with collaborators. Okay. You can get feedback on everything. But I would also say share this with your audience, because guess what? They're going to feel invested. If they look at it, and you can ask them, hey, is there anything missing that you would really like to see on here? They can become invested in your preview page, right? And then they can also choose to be followed. They can choose to follow you there, and they'll get notified when you launch. But now they have an invested interest in your project, so that when it does go live, they're more likely to back you. They're more likely to talk about it. They're more likely to tell other people about it. So this is a really good thing to do, is to share your preview. I did not do this because I ran out of time. Do not follow what I did. Do what I say. No, this is something that I will definitely do better on my next campaign. And I knew the benefit of doing this, but I just simply ran out of time. So, and what did I say? Pre-launch. So then that's your preview page. And I did talk about this earlier. There's 2 pages you can show before you actually launch: your preview page and your pre-launch page. Now your pre-launch page, you want to try and get that up at least 2 weeks prior to your campaign launch. You can do longer. You can do longer. It's probably better to do longer, but I would say at least 2 weeks. I got mine up in a week. Not so bad though, because I did get quite a few followers. I don't remember what my number was, but it was a good amount. I think it was less than 100. And there's some people who say, if you don't get 100 followers, you're going to fail. Well, I didn't have 100 and I didn't fail. So don't listen to that. There's a lot of naysayers. But getting followers is a good thing. So pre-launch page allows you to tease your project by sharing the project image, title, description. You probably have seen this if you've been on the Kickstarter page anytime. So here, potential backers can choose to be notified. There's a button you click to say that you want to follow, and they are notified when you get ready to go live. And a good rate, and I don't know if this is like set in anything, I couldn't find anything that said, yes, this is what you need to do, but they say like 30% conversion is good. So if 30% of your followers convert to actually backing you, then that is a better indicator of whether or not you're going to be successful. And mine was a 32% conversion. And you're able to see that. It's in the back end of your statistics, your dashboard. When you look at the back end, you can see how many people were following. You can see how many people ended up backing you of those followers. So you can see what your conversion is. So that is that could possibly be a good metric. Again, I don't really see something that's like set in stone that that's what you need to do, but it does seem like it could be a good metric. At least it was for me. Again, use images in your rewards. Start simple if you can. We talked about that quite a bit already. Know that this is only 1/3 of your campaign work. It's a lot of work. It's about 1/3. You have your actual campaign. That's your launching. That's your getting it out there, telling people about it. And then your third part is your actual fulfillment, which can be, people have said this is the hardest part. I think it's the hardest part because you have to rely on other people to get things done. And it's hard when they're not getting it done. So that's the hard part. I think that's the hard part for me with the fulfillment, because I could already have a lot of this stuff is done already, but I'm waiting on other people to get things done with the publish, especially with Ingram Spark. All right, research, work on building up your followers. I've said research a lot throughout here. I've talked about building your followers and get as much feedback as you can. These 3 I have honed in on the entire time, so you guys know if you've been here. All right, good. Any questions? Let me see if there's anything here. Do you get addresses to send stuff at the end of the Kickstarter somehow? Yeah, so anyone who was a physical backer, it takes their address. It's automatic that it's collected, but you get to send a survey, one survey and one survey only. Don't make this mistake because I didn't know this part. You have to send one survey where you can give them the option to change their address. And so I would just automatically just let them change their address if they need to, because it may not be the address. The address on file may be like their credit card address, not the address where they actually live or whatever. So yeah, you do get their addresses for those who are physical. For anything you set up that you mark as digital only, you won't get any addresses for, because obvious is digital. But what I would tell you is, for all your digital tiers, if you want people on your digital tiers to be able to add on any reward, so any add-ons, and if you have physical add-ons, then you want to make sure you mark it as both physical and digital, even if it's only a digital tier. Yeah, international shipping on Kick, it was $75 just to ship from me to them. Yeah. Do you have good recs for good fulfillment companies? Depends on what you want. Now, Dana's going to come on. She is a fulfillment company with lots of different products. So she's a good one to go through. Now, if you're talking about books, like just getting just a paperback printed, if not anything special done with it, Ingram is all over the world, but Ingram is having tons of issues. Book Vault is expanding their reach. They're a little more expensive, but they're expanding their reach. And I have seen different books from them versus like Ingram and like Amazon, and their quality is a little bit higher. So I'm actually working with Book Vault right now. and I'll have some videos come out my channel here in the next couple of months, just as a sponsorship. I'm going to show you guys some of the differences in their books versus like KDP and Ingram. So they're another one that is coming up. They have a shipping plant over in UK. They're based in UK, but they just came over to the US, and they have a small shipment here. And they're working with, I'm trying to remember what they told me they're working with. It's, I can't remember. I have it written down somewhere, but I'll say it in the video when I do the video. Let's see. I think it's like a library, the big library system. It's the tip of my tongue. Okay, I caught all the questions that were back. I don't see any in the front. Okay, so Dana Claire. Let me introduce Dana Claire, and then I'm going to bring her on. Hold on, I wrote down what I was going to say. All right, Dana Claire is an award-winning author whose stories explore identity, fate, and destiny in the crossroads of love and adventure. Her passion for romantic tension and spine-tingling action is revealed through her unforgettable characters who linger long after the last page. So that's the fiction side. So you know that Dana knows all the things fiction, especially when it comes to these. But she's also a seasoned marketing and sales pro and public speaker. Combining her literary knowledge and marketing expertise, Dana founded the Influence, that is linked down in the box below, in the description box below, if you want to go there, which is an innovative marketing agency exclusively for authors. Dana is now sharing her expertise and stories through speaking events and book signings, introducing more readers to the world she's created and empowering fellow writers to build their literary empires. And she does come to us from California. She has an adoring husband, living her dreams, writing books, telling stories, changing the world one page at a time. And so let me pull this. And Dana, hello.
Hey, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about, I didn't know, I jumped in, it threw you off, but Jen, okay. You're so sweet. Thanks for having me here, and I'm excited to meet everybody that's tuned in today. And I feel like you gave me the fun thing to talk about.
Yes.
Those rewards, man, those are my jam. Anything that can highlight your books with visual aids is really my expertise. So short story before I share my screen, and you're probably going to have to help me do that because I'm technically challenged. I've been in marketing and sales for 20 years. I started when I left college doing promotional items. So when I got to the book world, I was really excited to kind of go back to my roots with swag, merchandising, and in crowdfunding, those rewards are essentially that. So I hope I give you guys some really cool, inspirational things today that you can take with you, and then they can visit my website if they want to see more. But tell me how I can share my screen.
Are you wanting to just do your website? Because I did pull it up already.
I had a PowerPoint.
Okay, no. Okay, so if you go to the bottom, you'll see where it says present.
Okay.
Now it does the PowerPoint. It presents kind of weird. I don't know if you have any animations. If you have animations, it doesn't do the animations very well. So
yeah, I do have one, but I could just do that at the end. So it's not going to let me share my screen. I guess I have to pull up the slide. Let's see, guys, if I can figure this out.
So yeah, if you hit present, it says slides, and that you can share.
Okay. It's not. Let me see if I can figure it out this way. If not, I've got all the visual aids next to me too that I could use, and my website.
And you can also share your screen and share the tab that has the PowerPoint.
Okay, so let me see if, share screen. There we go. Okay.
There's that too.
Thanks, guys. See, learning curve here. Okay. Here we go. Perfect. So you can tell me, can you see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we see it.
Yay!
And we see it with your stuff on. Okay, there we go. That's more of a presenter mode.
There we go. That should be perfect, hopefully. Yes?
Yep, that's good.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Sorry about that. So told you a little bit about myself and all the years that I've worked in promo. Now, when I first started to do this Kickstarter, I did not budget well. So Shannon, when I was listening to you talk about like all the things, I mean, I went buck wild. I was like, I'm going to do t-shirts. I'm going to do hats. I'm going to do book bags. I was like really excited. And then once I started to budget and narrowed down what I was doing, it was a lot less stuff because, as you know, it's so overwhelming, right? The shipping cost to you, and if you're packaging it together, I actually have a partner that does all my packaging for things anyway, but it's still a lot of stuff. So I did narrow it down. I would suggest that. I thought that was epic advice that you gave everyone, is like, write the tiers down on a piece of paper. You'll probably end up getting rid of 4 of them, and then keep it simple, especially for your first one. But I'd love to share some creative ideas. And I think the first one that we all think of, and you mentioned this, was these limited editions covers that have all the bells and whistles that people are just in love with. And you can see 3 different visuals here. And stenciled edges is up on the top for Sick Boys. I mean, you can't really see, but Sick Boys is actually a foil stamping. And then if you look at the one right below it, you can see these are 2 foiled stamping on the hardcover. And I have my examples here of about 3 behind me that I can show as well. And then one of the other things that I love, that I'm working on 2 projects right now for authors, and I don't think a lot of authors do this, so this is really fun too, is on the inside of your dust jacket, you can do a full color imprint. So that could even be like a map, or it could be your characters. I mean, it really could be anything. So we're working on, I hope this isn't a spoil for, I don't think the author will care, but I'm not going to tell you who she is. The book is a romance that takes place in London, and there's like a particular spot in London where they have their meet cute, and that's the interior cover that we're doing right now. So there's just a lot of stuff that you can do on the dust jacket. I also think the dust jackets are really nice too, because you can emboss them, whether it's your author name or if it's the title of your book, or you can do a foil imprint on the dust jacket. So there's a lot of fun stuff you can do there. And then the inside pages, that's a whole nother place to have a lot of fun, where you see a visual aid of a map down here, but there I'm doing, working on a historical romance, and we're doing the tartan colors of this Scottish kilt as the interior pages in the front and in the back. So there's just a plethora of things that you could add in. You can also do, I'll show you. I have one right here. I don't know if you guys can see me because I can't see you. Shannon, can you see me? I'm going to go with yes. You could do a ribbon pull. There's a lot of different things that you can do on the inside and the outside of your covers, and that's what make them a limited edition. So with that being said, this is something that our company does from design to production, and we can chat about that in a little bit. So this is a video, because it won't let me do videos, I'm going to pass over and I'll just show you the physical copy of it later. But why limited edition covers work so well is the price points you can offer these for and the margins that you've created. So without getting in particulars about your raw costs, I'm just going to tell you what the retail costs look like from even just like an Amazon standpoint, not even on Kickstarter. So Amazon sells these special editions that publishers are doing for some of their authors at $25 all the way up to $75. And when you're on Kickstarter, you can ask for a lot more. So you're talking about very high margins for something that is desired because of urgency and exclusivity. The other thing, and something that I did in my campaign, which I was going to bring up at the end so I can show you, is I'm only selling this book, this limited edition book, on my Kickstarter. Now I have a page, so even though my Kickstarter is over, people can continue to buy my hardcover. But for now, this is it. Like it creates that urgency that thought, well, if I don't get it here on Kickstarter, I'm never going to be able to get this version of the book because it's not sold anywhere else. So that's another thing, is creating urgency and exclusivity. So let's chat a little bit about rewards. So one of the things for me, I told you I got really excited. I wanted to do all the things. I also, because I've been an importer for over a decade, I know about shipping costs. So I thought this through big time. Once I got excited about all the things, I came down and I was like, okay, let's do a bunch of digital rewards that make a lot of sense and can be really exciting, and then use the stretch goals. Now we didn't hit them, so I didn't end up doing this, but that's one of my stretch goals, was taking the digital and making them physical products if we hit XYZ number. So movie posters are really neat. Now you can see this War of the Sea movie poster looks just like my cover, but remember that's a limited edition cover, so it is not the actual cover. And I ended up doing it because I fell so in love with my movie posters. So these are things that make great digital rewards that you can then turn into physical items. And that's a really neat way to leverage your stretch goals. Another thing is custom coloring books. I actually just did a custom, I didn't do it for her Kickstarter. I just did a custom coloring book for a children's author who was looking to add something to her store. But again, this is a really neat piece you could do. And I wanted you to see Bridgerton's because it doesn't have to be coloring books for children. Coloring books, there's a ton of adult coloring books out there, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be of the characters of your book. So for example, I did a custom coloring book. The inside are sexy Greek gods because War of the Sea happens to be around Greek mythology. Are they the pictures that I think the Greek gods in the book look like? No, they're just pictures of sexy Greek gods. And there's a ton more Greek gods in the coloring book than I have in my storyline. But the cover matches, and I don't have an image of it right now, actually, it's being developed. So the cover, front and back, are all branded to me. And I also have QR code on it, like promoting some of my other books. So there's a lot of things that you can do with this. This is another item that could be digital and then you could make into a physical. So that's another way to do something where you're building excitement and adding to your stretch goals. This is another one. So I started with the digital stuff and then I'll get to the physical. Character portraits. So this, and you guys talked, I heard Shannon talk about this a little bit about AI. This is clearly AI. So you do want to mention that that's what this is, but give us 10 pictures of you and we can give you back a portrait. And in my case, it was a Greek god, goddess, or a pirate. And this is me as a pirate, although I'm kind of feel like I look like a Greek goddess, but whatever. It came out nice, so I'm okay with it. And then you could also, again, turn this as a digital reward into a physical item. So that was something that I thought was kind of cool and unique too. Now the physical stuff, which is the stuff that I love. So I always think, like, what are places that people read your book in? And it's like next to their bed or on their couch or, you know, cuddled up outside on a rocker. I just think of like this cozy feeling. So a lot of the things that I do represent coziness. So I make eye masks for everything that I have ever done. This being one of them. Socks are another one, blankets, anything that I think kind of gives you that like cozy hot chocolate. We did the hot chocolate ones for actual an in-person event. That was really cute. It was very cold. So these things. The other thing that I love about these is that they have a high perceived value. So an eye mask, most people are like, oh, that's $15, $19, where your price point, and again, it all depends on things, might be a couple bucks. So you're making more money there, but you have that higher perceived value with this physical item. T-shirts, sweatshirts, wearables, hats, anything like that, that's the same thing too. So imprints do matter here, and it's something more if I'm working with someone I get into, but I always say do a 1 or a 2 color imprint because the more colors that you have, the more expensive it's going to make the item. Same thing with location. But this is a nice way. I actually, I don't remember, I don't know if it was Brandon Sanderson or if it was one of the ones I did recently, but they had this. Now you have to remember what can be confusing about apparel is you do have to ask for the sizes. So that is something to consider and think about when you're doing wearables, not for hats or really socks, because it's kind of a one size fits all. So you could do this with your local print shop. I do these. So, you know, I even help with the artwork and things like that. You could do custom tins or candles or smaller items, especially if it's like a period piece. You could do a tea that has something to do with a smell or a taste. Same thing with candles, a smell that has something to do with your book. People in the book world love candles and they love tea. And I like to show like a really inexpensive way to do this, where you could even do it yourself if you wanted to. You buy the tins for $1, you get the sticker for $2. and you get the tea and you package them yourself. And it's a DIY project, do it yourself. Is that right? Yeah, a DIY project that you could do with you and a friend. Grab a glass of wine and you make it a day. Or you can have someone like me and then I will do it for you. I'll grab a friend and I'll grab a glass of wine and it'll be a day. Bookmarks are obviously super, likable, and everybody loves bookmarks and they're never going to go out of season, especially for people who are into physical books. So this is something that, I think you could do, and you could add tassels to it. Leather bookmarks. I just did a leather bookmark for an author. I just actually had on my mailing list that went out on Friday. I showed a bookmark that I love. It's got a magnet on each side. So like you can put it in between where you are and then the magnet closes it. I just like it because it's a double-sided bookmark, which gives me more of a canvas to talk about my books. So especially if you had a series or something like that. So you could do bookmarks for sure. Earbuds are a big one for me because my War of the Sea campaign on Kickstarter was an audiobook. So I actually did these. This one is a real one too. I did it for my audio book of Hunterland because that was my first audiobook, but I did this for War of the Sea. That's a great one. And the shipping is really inexpensive. So the gift was the audiobook because that's what we were raising the money for. And then also these earbuds. The earbuds value retail cost anywhere between $30 and $50. So these are wireless, they're waterproof, obviously Bluetooth. So these are really nice earbuds that I did for a really inexpensive price, which is one of the reasons why I sell them at book signings, because I sign the back of them and then they can buy right then and there the audiobook. So just like another idea kind of outside of Kickstarter, but great for Kickstarter as well, for a physical item wrapped into a digital item as a double. Playing cards. If you and I were best friends, you would know that I love playing cards. I actually do this for every event that I go to, but I thought these were really cool. I haven't done playing cards for my Kickstarter, but I could see it if you had like a casino or like any type of gaming or gambling, like the mob, anything like that. Vegas, obviously Vegas, right? This is a great one to do too. You can do, and you can see this really well on the picture. You can customize the packaging of it, but you can also customize the characters. So this is a really fun one. It's not inexpensive, but again, a high perceived value. So you're not talking about swag, right? Talking about rewards that people are like, oh, what would I pay in a store for this? And this has my characters of this book that I want to support and read. So when you think about it that way, something like this, I think you could charge $20, and that's a really great margin for what this actual cost is. So, and if I were to work with you, again, there's like a lot of variables that go into cost of the projects, but there's good ROIs on these. Another thing, and I know somebody had asked this question, like, where do I get a fulfillment company to work with? And it does depend. Shannon's right. Like everybody does something a little bit different. I tend to do custom shipper boxes for my clients for unboxings. And then I also, for Kickstarter, it was a no-brainer to do one for my Kickstarter. So you can put obviously all your swag in there, and you could put your book in there. So we just go over dimensions, and then artwork my team does as well. Now, if you're doing like a big box, I have a fulfillment center that does everything for my clients that are looking to do very big boxes. So that it is something that I can do. It is a pricier, and you have to make sure that you put this in. Like it is a pricier commitment because you're shipping everything maybe to you or maybe just to the fulfillment center, which is fine with me. That's what I suggest. And if anything's broken or not done correctly, they will tell us and send pictures and things of that nature. But they can do everything. And I love a good custom box because I think it really gives any social media, or, you've got an influencer who supported you and they've got thousands of followers, or maybe they do a big post and it goes on TikTok and it goes viral. And then they go to your page and you've got opportunity after to be able to buy other things or do add-ons or things of that nature. So anyway, I just love them. And I think it's a good thing to have a custom box. I love socks. I'm pretty sure my friends tease me constantly because every book I've ever done, I've done socks for, except this Kickstarter. Not intentionally. It's just I had to slim down all my offerings because I had 10 offerings. So I didn't do them, but these I did for sci-fi. I do love socks. If any of you guys want to do socks, let me know. I happen to absolutely love doing the designs and getting them in your hands because they're so soft and people just love them. I get compliments constantly on them. And you can order a low minimum order quantity. I think my MOQs are 36 pieces for socks. So there's a lot of things that we can do with that item. Tattoos are a great one as well. I used Harry Potter because I thought that would be something that you guys would all be familiar with, but you can do colored temporary tattoos. You can do stickers, a sheet of stickers. What I like about doing something like this is you can have a header card, all of those different things that maybe you used as your artwork, you're able to use them now as a temporary tattoo. So if you paid for it to have on your page, because as Shannon said, like you want to make it look really visually pleasing, this is another way to leverage that art that you've commissioned. If you have commissioned it, I'm not artsy, which is why I have an entire design team. So I couldn't do any of this, but this is just another way. Like I paid XYZ for this. Well, now I could use it as a sticker, a tattoo, a pin, a button. Like there's a million things you could do with that. I happen to love mouse pads. I did do mouse pads as a surprise. So don't tell anyone, as a surprise reward in my boxes for this Kickstarter. So I just like this item because it's an item that people have in front of them at all times because we're pretty much attached to our computers, right? So I'm like, oh, it'll remind them of me. So I think it's a really good promotional item. Plus, I think people don't necessarily go out and buy new mouse pads, right? Like I don't even know the last time I bought a mouse pad. So I think I got this as a giveaway, to be honest, the one I have right here. So that's a really nice piece too to add in there with it's low shipping costs because it doesn't carry a lot of weight, and it's full color imprint sublimation, which I also love because it gives you a great canvas to use artwork with. I am a big fan of puzzles. So puzzles is a great one too. I have a puzzle supplier that I work with constantly. I happen to adore him. So I can do puzzles for anything, anywhere from 12 pieces to 1,200 pieces. I mean, we can make a big puzzle or we could do something super small, and we can even make the packaging of the puzzle really neat. So happen to love puzzles. And then that's really it for the presentation. I want to show you what the website looks like and how you can search things and figure out. Did I lose you guys? No, you're there, right? Yeah. I went through a little bit fast because I really want to show you how you can search and like find some things on your own. You said, Shannon, you have it pulled up. Did you want to do it? Because I thought it'd be cool if I was like, you navigate, you put in a word, and then we could see like what you found.
Okay. Yeah.
So I love this stuff, guys. Like when it comes to supporting, so this is my website. If you come here and you click on shop, it will give you a couple drop downs. So
let me get to the right, wrong tab. Here we go. Okay, so click on shop. Okay.
Yep. So actually, you could do the first one. The first one is the custom special edition book. So if you were to come to the website, you could see all the different things that we do for add-ons, the foil stamping, the special edition dust jacket, the stenciling on the side, which is just so much fun. Mine has scales on it, because mermaid scales. And then, there's videos at the bottom where you could actually click on the video and see the whole kit and caboodle of each example that we have. I've got so many more, but I can't post any of them yet. So I have to wait till they come out. But as everything comes out, we'll be adding more and more and more. This is an example that my team did to show just a bunch of them, but at your own convenience, you could come here, and that's great to show you all the different things that you could do for an upgraded hardcover book. And then if you go back to shop and you click on the third one, book merchandise, this is a great way to see. So there are hundreds of thousands of items on here. So if you were to go, go all the way to the top, we'll just go straight to search. I just want to show you how easy it is. So you could put in anything, Shannon. Go ahead, surprise me, because we did not practice this. Cool. I have no idea. So there are hundreds. There we go. I was like, I hope something pops up. There are hundreds of thousands of items here. And what's so nice about this is you can see the pricing right away and what the minimum order quantities are. So if you were to, click on the one that's $4.15, The third one in. Let's see what that looks like.
This one.
Yeah. And I don't know, guys. I mean, I have hundreds of thousands of different products that we can do. So this is a custom full color 20 card tarot deck. If you go down, you can see what the prices look like from 100 all the way up to 5,000. Now, here's the good news. Because I've been in this industry for a couple of decades, I get really good pricing on stuff. So if you were like, I really want to do 100 of those, but that $4 looks way better than $18, we can talk, and I can talk to my suppliers. Because I'm in this industry with an ASI number, which don't even worry what that is, and a reseller's permit, I get those industry prices. So not necessarily what you see as that first column pricing would be your pricing, which is really nice, but you can at least see what's out there. One of my clients right now just did a custom cat pillow. She has a cat in her book, and she wanted to make a pillow that looks like this cat, and we did. So it's in the shape of the cat, and it's adorable. So there's a lot of different things that we can do. But if you were like, Dana, I really want a candle. I'm like obsessed with candles. I'm going to do candles. You just put candles in there. You find the candle that you like the most, and we could talk more about it. The other thing you can do, and probably what you'd like to do even more, is just tell me what your project's about. I can make a presentation of items that I think might fit, and then send them to you and say like, hey, what do you think of these? And one of the other determining variables that you could give me is like, hey, I think that I'm probably going to stay around like 25 to 50 pieces. Like, I don't know how many people, and it doesn't matter, right? Because we're not producing these until you guys fund. But you could go in here and set expectations. Like, let's look for things that are at 25 minimum order quantity. And then I can find things like that for you too. So there's just so many different things that I can do to help you with your rewards. And honest to gosh, there's so much in this industry. Every time I go to an industry trade show, I'm like blown away for like 1,000 times that, oh my God, I forgot we could do that. So I just went to a trade show the other day, and somebody was doing a hoodie, and inside the hoodie was like a little compartment that had a koozie for your beer can or your soda can. And I was like, that's cool. Never would have thought of that. So there's so many different things that you could add as rewards. And one of the things that I always go over is like, oh, I love that. You had acrylic standees. Oh, so cute. Yeah, there's so many different things you could do, right? So I won't go on and on about that, but I will say the number one thing that I've seen, and Shannon mentioned research, and I am research heavy, is what I've seen is this, and now that I can see my face again, this was my original book, and then this was the one I did for Kickstarter. This is it, original book, and the lovely inside is just black and white. This book has, a map on the inside. It has the foiled, hardcover, and then this lovely dust jacket too. So there's just a lot of different things you can do. This one, same thing, but this on the inside, I just did a ombre color and then some stenciling that had to do with, this is a Monster Hunter. Some stenciling that had to do with all of the attributes inside the book. This is a foil on top of imprint, and I'm doing that for actually a publishing house right now. So it looks like it's foil on foil, but it's not. It's foil on imprint, and it's beautiful in person. So that's another thing that you can do. We can imprint. We can even number them. So if you're like, this is a special edition that's only happening on Kickstarter, that's it. Like whatever the number is at the end of the day, then they get a book with, let's say it's 200. One, and then it says 200. So it says 1/200, and they know there's only 200 of these made, and they got the number 1 or 2 or 10 or whatever it is. I mean, those are things you can do that really add exclusivity and excitement, and you can have social media things that back it. So there's just a ton of stuff for rewards that are at your fingertips that are going to get you more money, and they'll provide you with things that you can do to market it. So if you're on a podcast or you are looking for social media images, Shannon, I ran out of mine too. I was like, right? Like it's 30 days or 14 days or 60 days, whatever you pick, that you need to have stuff that's new to talk about every single day. So adding things like this really creates that excitement. I think it creates, I don't know, I'm excited. Can you guys tell?
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel the same way. I felt excited the first time I saw you show your store. I was like, "Ooh, I want to do that. Oh, I want to do that." And yeah.
It's like kind of contagious. I did these for another one. I don't know if I shared these, but we're packaging them. So like I'll have like a little card on here. These are hair ties. I love hair ties, guys. But this is just another thing, and it's got the step and repeat of my logo, and it's, you know, vampires, so there's bloody lips.
Mhm.
You know, there's lots of different cute things that you can do that have a lot of branding value to what you do. I'm gonna make you cry. I know, because I get so excited, right? Thank you. That's so sweet. And I really take pride in these designs. Every book that I help, I read. So I'm not just like giving direction to my team based on your book blurb. I know everything because I've read all of it. So it's very detailed advice when we come up with these designs based on like the things that I thought might be very valuable. So I think that this is a really neat way to increase people to upgrade or to add on, because as Shannon mentioned, you know, at the end, they can change their pledge. So if you were to have stretch goals and you're updating your page because you want to do that to create this excitement, and you're like, hey guys, we're so close. If we can get to, I'm just going to take 10 grand because I'm better with even numbers. I can do the stenciled edges and you know, a foiled stamping. People are going to up. They're going to want that reward. So it is a really neat thing, and it's the one that I've seen the most. Would you agree, Shannon? Like those
Yes.
really like special edition
Yes.
books. That's the ones that I've seen happen to push them over the edge.
Yeah. And I mentioned that actually, yeah, toward the beginning of the stream. That is the limited edition, special editions. Those are the things that really do well.
Yeah. And it is crazy to me that they're like so popular now. I think Fourth Wing
Fourth
really,
Wing.
man, that like sold out so much. And you now you can buy them on Amazon. Years ago, you couldn't have done that. You know, it's a trend.
So Aphrodite is planning on doing a Kickstarter here soon. So yeah,
Oh, yes, I love that. I love that. Themes of
academia.
ideas. Well, I would love to chat with you.
Yeah.
That was really some of my ideas that I wanted to share with you guys and give you a little, you know, a backstory of me. But the other thing is too, if you did want to see what mine looks like for some visual ideas, you can always go to warofthesea.com, which was an easier.
I have your Kickstarter link down
Oh,
below in the description box.
perfect. So you
So
could go there and you could see like how I broke things up. I loved when you said like, just make sure it's not text heavy, right? People are visual.
yeah.
Bullet points are really great too, because it breaks things up and people are like, okay, I can see this and understand a little bit more. And if you're nuts like me and you did 10 rewards, I would absolutely suggest doing an image showing those 10 rewards, but you know, on your even your story
Story.
part,
Yeah,
because
I did on my story. I had 9 rewards.
oh, so you're crazy like me. That's perfect.
Yes.
I love that. I love that.
The thing is, I have candles, but I bought all this stuff to make them myself. And I'm like, man, I could have saved a lot of time if I met you before.
Oh, you're gonna melt the wax.
Yeah, yeah. And I bought scent. But I got like dragon's blood scent to go with my dragons. And I even got like mermaid scent, which is my second book. But yeah.
Cool. I love that. I did not know about the mermaid. We need to talk scales offline.
Yeah. That's my second book. So yeah.
I love that. Well, thanks for having me. And I can stick around if you want to put me in a corner.
Well, I thought maybe we could wrap up with maybe saying, do we plan to do it again? Do you plan to do another Kickstarter?
Yes. Probably. So one of the things, and Shannon, I think Russell said this. I can't remember if he said it when we were on that conference call with him, but August is the best month to do a Kickstarter. I do not know why. Do you know why?
Well, the idea behind it was that because all the kids are going back to school, so now parents have time to read and find things.
Mm-hmm.
But I was listening to other people and they were saying, but that's not a good time because that's when they're buying back to school, like clothes and you know, the supplies and things. And so it wasn't the best time to do it. And so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I funded, so that makes me excited. I would say the only time maybe I wouldn't do it is during the holidays.
Yeah.
But my plan was to do all of these audiobooks. And now the writer's strike, as many of you must know about the writer's strike. And I've got 2 option for TV things that are going nowhere because of it. The SAG strike is actually going over into voiceovers now.
Oh.
So I am holding off a little bit to see what happens with the strikes, but I am going to do the rest of this series on there with the audiobooks. So yeah.
Okay.
Now, are you going to do another one?
I am planning to do one. My goal would be to have it by February to do my next one for the second book. But I don't like my second book, and I'm throwing it all out and starting over. So I'm like, am I going to have it done and ready by February? Probably not.
I don't believe that. You don't like it, or you're like, I like it, I just need to work on it.
No. Yeah, I don't like it.
Oh.
No, my main character has basically no agency, which I did this for my second book for my last series. My main character had no agency. It's like she's not making the decisions. I'm like, now I know what to do. I have it in my head. I've just been busy with the Kickstarter, fulfilling this Kickstarter. And I'm like,
yeah,
when am I going to have time to do this? When am I going to have time to write this the way I need to? But then I wrote my novella in like 2 weeks, and that ended up 27,000 words. So
yeah, sometimes you just sit on these, like, you're like, okay, I can't stop writing. I'm not going to, kick a gift horse in the mouth. Right. So yes, I'm definitely going to do one again, but I'm waiting to see what happens with the strikes.
Yeah. If I don't do mine February, I plan on doing it again right before the authortube writing conference next year. So
I love that.
Yeah. But all right. Well, what is your best tip that you learned from your campaign?
My best tip was the pre-launch. And I think so. You did talk about this a little bit. So I interviewed 2 companies, and I'm going to name them. One is Jellop. It's Jellop. And then the other one is Launch Boom. Launch Boom has ridiculous reviews. They are like fantastic, ridiculous. And I would have gone with them. But when I had my interview with them, I was almost 2 months to my launch. And they only work with you if you're 3 or more months. That's how much they work with you prior to it. So my biggest and best tip was talking to them. I wish I had more time and I would use them for my next one, is that pre-launch, to get as many people as you can to follow you. Because one of the things I think I did too late was explain to my audience what a Kickstarter was. Yeah. And I did have about 120 people follow me before my launch. But I think if I did a better explanation, the percentage to my newsletter to how I got people to follow was less than, I think, 5%.
Oh.
It was small for my newsletter.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have family and friends on newsletters, and I did a huge promotion with 5 different like blitz. I can't remember what they called them. They were called Kickstarter blitz tours. And those tours really helped me. So it was a lot of influencers that pushed people. And that was where I started to get my followers up. But I wish I could have done more, and I would have run ads in the beginning. So I think pre-launch is really important. So I would say that that's my biggest and best tip. And I think it's going to be different for everybody, depending on what your finances are, what your, storyline is to really make sure that you have a good pre-launch so that that day you just soar, and you're almost so close to your goal within that first week.
So this was your second Kickstarter though, right?
No, it was my first.
Oh, no. Okay. I thought it was your second. So, okay. Because I'm thinking there is so much to learn and so much to do that when it came to like trying to figure out the pre-launch campaign, I was just like, I was done. But then I was also planning the authortube writing conference at the same time. And just, I had so much going on, and I was just like, but yeah, I did the one that Russell Nolte is suggested. What was it called? I don't remember, but it cost $25 is what I believe it was. And I don't think I got any backers from it. From what I saw, I didn't have any.
Oh, I remember. I can't remember what he called that.
Yeah.
Like a back or something, right?
Yeah, I think it was back or something. Yeah.
I didn't do that one. I did a lot of, I wanted to go forward with Jellop, but I was a little like worried about running too many ads without like seeing. So I wanted to kind of be successful before I did that, because like you said, you've got to run ads and see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. And
that made me a little bit nervous. Writing Wives, I don't know if you know Jill, right?
Yeah.
They're great too. And I hope it's not a spoiler, but I'm going to tell your audience, I'm so bad with secrets.
Oh, no.
They're starting a master class on how to do ads for Kickstarters.
Okay.
So that's something that you could always go to Writer Wives and talk to Jill and Mal about that, because they're fantastic. Like, I think they're the best in the business when it comes to ads, and I'm like ad illiterate. I mean, you saw me trying to share screen. So, right? You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
I feel the same with, like, because I've gone a lot to Mallory's Facebook ad classes, and I still don't feel good enough about that to try it.
I know, and
So,
she's so good too. Like, her explanations are, when I'm on it and in it, I'm like,
right, I can do this. Yeah, and then
no, I'm so with you.
Yeah.
But I would suggest that pre-launch, like, don't think that you have to do the work for that, because I do think that was why I was able to raise $4,000 for my first one, which Russell also, when he and I were chatting, he was like, you need to do like 500 or like 1,000. And I was like, well, I can't, because the cost of the audiobook is 4,000. I'm eating the rest of the cost. So like, I need to raise at least the cost of the audiobook.
Yeah.
So that was what made me come up with my number. Oh, I love you, Rachel. Honestly, it makes me feel better, because I'm also, yeah, I'm really scary, which is funny because I always work for tech companies. So I'm like, what happened?
Yeah. No. Alrighty. Well, my best tip that I would say is to just give yourself more time, which if I did give myself more time, I could probably do that pre-launch stuff that you're talking about. So I didn't. I thought, okay, no, this is more important. I kept saying, okay, I want to get this done. I want to get this done. I want to get this done. And I just kept putting everything. I said, I can do all this in 6 weeks. I can do it in 6 weeks. Yeah, no. I should have gave myself 3 months to get through everything.
Right? It's
So,
wild. And it's stressful.
it is. Yes. And it's a whole different level of fear, because it's, you put it on Amazon and you're like, I hope someone buys it. But then, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I haven't been in that position. But then on Kickstarter, it's just out there for everyone to see.
There is a good amount of fear with that. That's like I think it's a really like vulnerable point that you said that everybody would understand, because I think as writers, we have fear all the time. Like, is anyone going to love my story? Like, will this sell? Like, what are my reviews going to come in like? And now you have to raise that money to get it. Like, it's not like if you raised 500, you get the 500. If you don't hit what your goal is, party's over.
Yep. And all that time. And I remember thinking that, I was like, I was barely sleeping. I was sleeping like 2 or 3 hours a night. I was falling asleep at my desk and waking up to get my Kickstarter going and the authortube writing conference, because I had some issues with a couple speakers with the authortube writing conference, and then my website crashed. So then I was working on the website until like 3 in the morning, the day of the authortube writing conference. And so I was not sleeping. And I remember thinking, what if this thing doesn't fund all these hours I've put into creating this Kickstarter, putting this together, and it doesn't fund? And what have I just done to myself?
Yeah. No, you're right. And I always look at it like, well, this isn't it's a learning experience. Like, if there's something I'll take away from this, I was like, it's going to be that I learned from this. But you're right. Like, you put in all that blood, sweat, and tears. And then if you don't fund, you're like, well, no one paid me for, like you said before, no one's paying you for your time. You didn't put that into your budgeting, like Shannon's time per day.
Yeah. Right.
Yours would probably be like $100,000.
Yes. Yes. So, alrighty. Well, if we'll leave it. Do you guys have any questions in the audience? Anybody out there to want to ask any last minute questions? Because then we are going to finish it up. Dana, if you want to go ahead and do your outro, which is where you can tell people where they can find you and find more about you.
Yeah, well, guys, it was great being here. Thanks so much. If you go to theinfluence.com, that'll be my website, and you can contact me there, or dana@theinfluence.com. Email me with any questions. I do give free 15-minute consultations on any subject. Well, any subject that's there. If you want like cooking lessons, I'm not your gal. I can't cook anything, but anything. So if you just want to book a 15-minute call and like shoot things at me and I can tell you what I think, you can do that as well. So Dana@theinfluence, and I can't wait to meet and connect with everyone.
Awesome. All right. Well, and Dana, if you want to hang out when I do the outro video, I'll see you on the back side here. But for those who are watching the replay, please let me know in the comments below what masterclass you'd like to see next. I still have the author newsletter masterclass up. That is from last month. And if you found this video helpful, please consider hitting that thanks button below the video. And Yeah, we'll trade you easy peasy cooking lessons for questions, she says to Dana. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I don't have the cooking lessons either. But now let me end this with just a bit of wisdom. So whatever you do, whatever choices you make, remember to be yourself, unless you can be a dragon, and then be a dragon.